A young man dangles by his bare hands above a pit of ravenous zombies while bandits watch. His friends are all dead. For him, life holds no more meaning. Worse yet, he carries the crushing guilt of causing their tragic end. He stares up at his tormentors with pure, burning hatred. His burning gaze locks onto the girl who betrayed them. Feigning innocence, the gorgeous traitor clings to the fat bandit leader, who promises her a slow, agonizing execution. Offending her has consequences. The fat boss even laughs, thanking the dying man, bragging that these stolen supplies will keep his gang comfortable for months. With a smirk, he presses a button on his remote, snapping the rope. Gravity takes over, sending Xiao-Yun plummeting straight into the zombie pit. Below him, a swarm of flesh-eating monsters snap their jaws, waiting for food. They swarm him instantly, tearing into his flesh with absolute savagery. While being eaten alive, one final, vengeful thought burns in his dying mind. Another chance, that is all he needs to make them all pay. Suddenly he snaps awake, drenched in sweat, gasping for air and completely disoriented. Standing right in front of him is a stunning woman demanding answers. She wants to know why her name is missing from his property deeds. Did he stop loving her? Xiao-Yun, completely stunned, looks around in disbelief. Trying to process his surroundings, he realizes he has traveled back in time. He is back before the apocalypse, face to face with the treacherous Qiu-Jing. In his past life, she swindled him out of his entire inheritance. She left him completely broke on the streets right before the world collapsed. When the zombie virus erupted, Xiao-Yun fought hard and built a sanctuary. A safe haven, but then a familiar, crying face showed up begging. A crying, terrified Qiu-Jing arrived at his gates, pleading for shelter. Taking pity on her despite her past betrayals, he let her inside. Big mistake, that single act of mercy would seal his ultimate fate. It was a setup all along, and Qiu-Jing personally opened the gates for the bandits. Xiao-Yun remembers it all. Externally, his face remains a calm mask. He quietly plans his ultimate revenge against the deceitful girl standing before him. Breaking his train of thought, she demands her expensive wedding dowry right now. He fights the overwhelming, burning urge to rip her apart right now. Pure rage, yet he forces himself to stay completely composed and quiet. Xiao-Yun tells her that he remembers the dowry and everything else. With that, he grabs her arm and throws her outside. Lockout Qiu-Jing is utterly stunned by his sudden, commanding confidence. Slamming the door shut, he immediately checks the calendar on the wall. He needs to check the date. There is exactly 1 month left before chaos. Just 30 days until the end of the world. Time is running out. Work starts now. Suddenly, a familiar system alert rings in his head. An urgent quest appears, requiring secure land and massive food supplies. He has to secure a safe house and stockpile for a year. Completing this gives him vital system points for high-tier future upgrades. Xiao-Yun looks around. He remembers the horrific hunger of his past. No more starving. This time, he will survive on his own terms. All his life, he had been saving money for his wedding with Qiu-Jing, but now, things were different. The young man decided to take full advantage of food delivery services. He knew the zombie apocalypse was only a month away. Soon, his table overflowed with incredible dishes ordered from the most legendary restaurants in the city. Sheng realized these gourmet feasts would likely be his last normal meals. But the quiet moment was shattered by a call from his fiancée's best friend, Wen Shuya. She immediately lashed out at him with nasty insults, accusing him of being selfish. How dare he treat Qiu-Jing this way, she screamed, claiming his bride just wanted proof of his love. She claimed he was acting like a total loser. Then, she demanded he register his apartment in Qiu-Jing's name and transfer 1 million yuan to her account immediately. Sheng simply told the annoying friend to get lost and hung up, feeling immensely satisfied. A massive wave of relief washed over him. His real task was finding some land. He needed the perfect plot of land to build an ultimate, impenetrable fortress. It had to feature a clean water source, deep within a dense, isolated forest. With these exact specifications, Sheng walked into a real estate agency the next morning. The head manager dismissed his female assistant, deciding to handle this plain-looking buyer himself. Barking orders at his subordinate, he sent her to the warehouse. He told her to remember her training, muttering that she lacked basic common sense. The manager sneered, viewing Sheng as a broke loser in cheap, ragged clothes. He doubted the guy could even afford a single square foot of property. Openly mocking Sheng, the manager compared him to a stray dog needing a kennel. The arrogant manager even boasted he would eat dirt if this kid bought anything today. Sheng happily accepted the wager, confident he was about to blow everyone away. He told the snobbish manager that his purchase would leave them speechless. Turning to the female assistant, Sheng announced he was not there to rent a tiny apartment. He wanted to buy actual land. The entire office fell into a stunned, quiet silence. Real estate agents rarely met individuals looking to purchase massive plots of private land. Since it cost a fortune, the girl quickly led Sheng over to the display models. She showed him the prime plots currently listed on the market. Sheng studied them closely. He listened intently to every single detail she explained. Meanwhile, the arrogant manager waited eagerly for the inevitable moment of payment failure. He expected the young man to be exposed as a penniless fraud, but Sheng ignored him. Ignoring the steep prices, he focused entirely on his critical checklist. The property had to fulfill a very specific set of tactical conditions for survival. It needed nearby mountains, thick forests, and a reliable running water source. Good road access was highly critical, along with an existing factory structure on site. The girl mentioned they actually had an abandoned industrial warehouse on their books. However, the head manager quickly cut in, claiming that property was strictly off-limits. He was utterly convinced that Sheng was just making up ridiculous demands to stall. The manager sneered, thinking no real buyer would ask for such absurdly specific criteria. Sheng ignored the loudmouth and calmly asked the female agent for more details. The site housed an old, abandoned factory. The previous development crew had gone bankrupt. They had fled, leaving the entire facility half-built, but structurally incredibly solid. The surrounding wilderness was perfect. Sheng knew this half-finished build would save him massive amounts of time and effort on building his shelter. Papers confirming that he was ready to buy the land and sign the contract immediately. The young agent could barely believe her ears, but this buyer demanded they wrap up the paperwork instantly. Since manager Ju still had to eat his words, Xiao-Yun immediately made an advance payment. It was a massive, insane amount of money for some abandoned plot with an unfinished factory. For manager Ju, things ended badly. He had to learn his lesson: never judge a person by their clothes. The system dinged, quest complete, plot secured. And now it was time to stock up on food. Suddenly, he spotted a familiar guy. Walking past, he recognized him as Xiao-Yun. What was he doing here? Meanwhile, Qing was looking gorgeous as usual, getting a manicure when her phone suddenly rang. It was her secret lover, Xu Xiang. She was thrilled to hear from him until he told her that he had just run into Xiao-Yun at the property office. Qing went ballistic. Hearing her fiancé bought land, she instantly knew where the money came from. Their bride price money. Xu Xiang told her to calm down and go find her fiancé for answers. Right at that very moment, however, Xiao-Yun was back in his apartment. He was planning his ultimate shelter. He needed serious cash for doomsday supplies, but his thoughts were cut short. A loud knocking came from the door. Talk about perfect timing. He saw two uninvited guests ready to cause massive trouble. Qing was absolutely furious that her fiancé spent her dowry money, but Xiao-Yun just stared back, completely unfazed. Honestly, he had far bigger things to worry about than dealing with a cheating fiancé. But Qing wasn't done yet. She kept screaming, demanding to know why he bought land using her bride price. She claimed that since it was her cash, that property belonged to her now. Xiao-Yun coldly scoffed, not happening. He had money, but she wouldn't get a single cent. He told her to forget about it, just like she should forget her secret lover, Xu Xiang. Qing froze in pure shock. The secret was out, seeing her friend panic when quickly stepped in to help, claiming it was all just some silly misunderstanding between a deeply loving couple. But Xiao-Yun wasn't buying it. There was no misunderstanding, and he certainly didn't have a fiancée anymore. He told her to go crawl back to Xu Xiang. Before slamming the door in their faces, Qing stood outside, completely devastated. She thought her affair with Xu Xiang was a perfect secret, even when was supposedly kept in the dark. Now, with everything spinning out of control, she needed to head home and plan her next move. Surprisingly, this situation actually thrilled when now she could finally make her move since they were over. Meanwhile, Xiao-Yun arrived at the construction site, where workers were already busy. He immediately asked how long the factory renovations would take. Foreman Li carefully assessed the bizarre job, reinforcing the main walls, building watchtowers, adding barbed wire, blast-proof doors, and bulletproof glass. It all looked like preparing for actual warfare, but Xiao-Yun offered zero explanations, demanding the fortress be completed within a single month, no matter the cost. The stunned foreman estimated that it would take round-the-clock shifts to finish the job, explaining that a massive crew and heavy workload were required. Would be intense. Foreman Li quoted 20 million, and the young man instantly agreed. He even promised an immediate down payment, which completely stunned the veteran builder. No haggling, no arguments. Xiao-Yun planned to transfer the cash within a week. To reassure the foreman, he offered a pretty wild guarantee to back up his promise. If he failed, Li could simply take the land as personal property. With the deal sealed, the builders eagerly got to work on the site. Just then, Win strutted over to Xiao-Yun, looking incredibly gorgeous and smelling expensive. Her hair was perfectly styled, and she practically dripped with high-end designer perfume. Clinging to his arm, she sweet-talked him, but Xiao-Yun remembered her dark past. In his previous life, she had used Kui Jing to ruin him completely. Payback time, yet the beauty kept up her sugary sweet act. She gushed about the scenic view, imagining the luxury villa he would build there. But Xiao-Yun physically shoved her away, coldness dripping from his eyes. He warned her not to touch him, snapping that his business was none of hers. Win stood there, entirely baffled by how this former loser was acting. Usually, a single touch would make him blush and stumble over his words. Ignoring her entirely, he walked right past to give the builders fresh instructions. While she plotted how to keep her grip on him, he was facing another crisis. Back at his apartment, Xiao-Yun racked his brain for a solution. He desperately needed cash for construction and supplies, but his options were thin. The bank mortgage only yielded 3 million, which barely covered the initial phase. But with the global apocalypse looming, keeping the property was completely pointless. He had to sell it off immediately. Suddenly, a loud knock rattled the door. It was his annoying elderly neighbor, a man who loved to cause trouble. But as the door swung open, a brilliant idea hit Xiao-Yun. This old neighbor Lai was loaded, owning 2 entire floors of the building. He might actually buy the place, which Xiao-Yun originally wanted to keep. He had saved it for his post-wedding life, making him a prime target. The old man constantly harassed him, and this visit was no different. He loudly accused Xiao-Yun of destroying the community flower beds overnight. Xiao-Yun tried explaining he was asleep, but decided on a better tactic. He cut the old man off. He was selling the apartment. Hearing this news made the old neighbor absolutely ecstatic. He listened with his mouth wide open as Xiao-Yun laid out the terms. Xiao-Yun explained his plan to build a new house while staying there. But to close the deal, he required an upfront 5 million advance. The greedy neighbor agreed immediately, though he demanded a signed contract first. He was ready to hand over the exact cash Xiao-Yun needed. This was the perfect down payment. Xiao-Yun would sign absolutely anything. He even planned to sell the exact same property to multiple buyers. Talk about a ruthless hustle. In 30 days, contracts would not mean a thing. With the fresh funds in his account, it was time to stockpile. He headed straight to the local supermarket, grabbing a massive shopping cart. He began sweeping the shelves, grabbing every essential survival item in sight. He immediately drew the attention of nearby shoppers. People stared like he was crazy, unable to grasp why he needed this much food. The system confirmed that his grocery shopping was finished. This completed his disaster prep, unlocking stat upgrade points. Now he could finally use those points to boost his stats. Without hesitation, he traded his hard-earned points for a special chest. The virtual transaction went through instantly, and the chest was his. Inside the chest was a spatial ring capable of holding entire rooms. And best of all, it had absolutely no time limits inside. An absolute jackpot. He knew he was on the right path. Since time stood still inside, his massive food supply would never spoil. Meanwhile, the store manager and security guards rushed over to investigate. They wanted to see who was making such a scene. The manager approached, immediately recognizing Xiaoyang as an old classmate. He remembered him as a weak bully who feared the strong. The man was a total coward. Now, Yang Tao demanded he put everything back. He ordered him to stop causing a mess in his store immediately. Xiaoyang calmly stated that he would pay for all of it. Why should a paying customer deal with such garbage attitude? He mocked Yang Tao for remaining a petty bully his whole life. Yang Tao snapped back, warning him he would regret not paying right now. It took a full hour for 4 cashiers to scan every single item. The final total was calculated, and it was indeed absolutely massive. With a smug look, the manager demanded immediate payment. The transaction cleared, leaving Yang Tao disappointed as he walked away. But before they could leave, Xiaoyang called out to demand an apology. If he did not apologize, he would make Yang Tao restock everything himself. Yang Tao sneered, having absolutely no intention of saying sorry. He warned the young man not to look for trouble, but then onlookers intervened. Other shoppers watching the scene agreed the manager was in the wrong. They said the young man did nothing wrong and deserved an apology. Xiaoyang offered a deal, apologize, and he would buy 10 times more. He promised to clear out their stock and spend a real fortune. Flashing his massive bank balance, he left the manager completely in shock. Xiaoyang repeated that he would remain a loyal customer if he heard sorry. Yang Tao realized that for the business, he had to swallow his pride. The manager bowed low and apologized, and Xiaoyang condescendingly patted his head. He told him to control his temper next time as they walked out. Curious, Yang Tao asked why he needed so much food, but got no answer. Instead, Yang Tao suggested going to wholesalers for such massive orders. Xiaoyang loved the idea and asked for some good contacts. He wanted to know if Yang Tao had any reliable wholesale connections. His former school bully actually ran that business. The manager immediately called him to make the introduction. Xiaoyang grinned, already estimating how much illegal money these guys made. Directly into the pockets of these shady dealers, Yangta personally accompanies the buyer to his friend's massive wholesale warehouses. Suddenly, a speeding car pulls up and almost knocks over the guys waiting in front of the closed warehouse doors. Xiao-Yun instantly notices the driver's incredibly reckless style. Won't he get in trouble? For driving like that, a burly man in a raincoat steps out, casually puffing a cigarette and absolutely oozing arrogant confidence. Yong eyes his potential new client with keen interest. Meanwhile, the manager explains in a highly submissive tone that they actually used to go to school together. Yong analyzes the young man with a long, heavy stare blowing cigarette smoke right in his face. Yet, Xiao-Yun remains entirely unfazed, showing absolutely no sign of irritation. The bully suddenly remembers the stubborn kid who refused. To pay protection money back in high school, Jung suddenly grabs Xiao-Yun's jacket and spits out that he utterly despises broke losers who pretend to be rich wearing cheap knockoffs. Right after, the bully violently grabs his partner by the hair, complaining that he's wasted his precious time coming out to meet a supposedly massive client who is just some broke high school punk. Yanta desperately insists he is not joking and really brought a genuinely big buyer. Xiao-Yun actually enjoys watching these two absolute idiots bicker, while quietly noting how this classless brute looks down on everyone with such an incredibly trashy personality. Jung barks that he can spot real wealth instantly and is not about to waste another second on a complete nobody. Yanta frantically begs them to calm down, avoid a physical fight, and please not take any offense. Even if Jung is indeed quite uncultured, the furious bully strikes his partner again, ordering him to shut his mouth if he cannot talk sense. Then the massive brute turns to Xiao-Yun, threatening that if he does not buy an entire truckload, he will crawl home from this warehouse on all fours. Xiao-Yun is completely sick of these ridiculous arguments, so he simply displays his balance. Jung's eyes almost pop out of his head. Xiao-Yun coolly announces he will buy 5 million worth of supplies, making an advance payment and clearing the rest once everything is ready to go. He is specifically targeting massive amounts of rice, oil, salt, snacks, and drinks. He is going to purchase items that do not require frequent expiration date checks, all for the sake of a 10% discount. Xiao-Yun then announces he wants to inspect the actual quality of the products he is being offered. He confirms the packaging is completely fine, but the food inside is practically rotten. The owner of this shady wholesale warehouse is clearly the exact same cheap swindler he was back in high school. Jung never expected a wealthy buyer to actually know anything about product quality and is slightly flustered, but quickly offers an incredible new discount of half the original price. Xiao-Yun states he only spends 5 million on the absolute highest grade products, but he is willing to buy up this rotten inventory as well. He will take every last bit at a 50% discount, but only on one condition: he will pay in a month. This leaves the seller utterly shocked because most of these items will be completely expired by then. But Xiao-Yun offers his house as collateral, making everyone satisfied with the deal. And honestly, he is totally right, because very soon, even expired food will be worth its absolute weight in gold. But Jung still has no real idea what the guy is planning. Xiao-Yun does not explain, simply demanding that all the cargo be delivered directly to the address he provides. Just then, his phone suddenly rings, and the caller asks if he is selling the place. Without breaking the connection, he immediately moves to wrap things up. Xiao-Yang bids farewell. Resolve the food supply issue quickly, he instructs them. He leaves them behind completely, as his stunned friends fail to comprehend any of it. Since Xiao-Yang comes from an ordinary family background, this fortune makes absolutely no sense. Where did that massive fortune come from? Soon, Xiao-Yang meets the eager buyer, signs the paperwork, and pockets a heavy advance. Under the final legal terms, he is given 3 full months to move out of the property. The elderly buyer double-checks every line of the paperwork, completely ready to finalize the transaction. Still, Xiao-Yang wonders, why is the elder so desperate for this place? The elder speaks with total honesty. It is all for his beloved granddaughter. She is transferring schools, and without this place, she would have absolutely nowhere to live. He searched the entire neighborhood. Xiao-Yang's house was his only option. Such raw sincerity catches Xiao-Yang off guard, prompting him to offer the old man sound advice. Never lay your cards on the table so easily. It invites trouble. Sly people will exploit that. These funds were the savings of 2 hard-earned generations of savings, and the old man simply prayed that the boy would act honorably. He hoped Xiao-Yang would not take advantage of his pure vulnerability. Finally, the deal is officially closed. Relieved and happy, the elder bids him farewell. As he walks away, Xiao-Yun watches. This kind, hardworking, self-made soul has no idea. And his granddaughter stand no chance in the coming crisis. It is brutal. He calls out to the retreating figure, asking the elder for his current home address. The next morning, the young man heads directly to his construction site. Foreman Lee immediately asks about the next payout, while Xiao-Yun focuses entirely on progress. He inspects their work. The proud foreman showcases the progress. The construction crew has successfully completed the incredibly thick concrete walls and heavy steel doors. Elite security, they transformed an abandoned factory into this fortified warehouse. The location is completely cleared out and ready for immediate action. Xiao-Yun takes charge. Instantly rings Jiang Shenhe, time to bring in the primary stockpiles. Soon, a continuous stream of vehicles arrives, filling the massive facility to the absolute roof. He reminds the workers, perishables must be stored completely separate. Late into the night, this massive and exhausting logistics operation continues without a single pause. Finally, every single crate is safely stacked in its designated zone. He looks around, deeply satisfied with his progress. Suddenly, a familiar feeling washes over him. A familiar blue screen flashes in his vision, quest complete. He successfully secures his bunker, earning a hefty amount of points for his flawless performance. The system shop updates. New survival options are now officially unlocked for him. He immediately spends his hard-earned points to unlock a highly useful ability, the Eye of Reason. This power reveals hidden malice in anyone, even behind warm smiles. This is a massive advantage for the early days of global chaos. Next, a brand new task. Battle preparation. He needs to arm himself with some highly effective weapons. Late at night, he heads deep into the shadows of the city's notorious black market. Here under the shadows, faceless merchants deal in items banned from daylight trading. From replica gear and counterfeit goods to highly illegal self-defense weapons and other dangerous contraband. Xiao-Yun walks quietly through the crowded alleys, searching. Xiao-Yun wanders the streets looking for gear when his eyes land on Liu Xiang. He is busy haggling over some fake jewelry, likely picking out a cheap gift. It is for Qiu Jing. Suddenly, a weapon stand catches his eye. He realizes his late-night trip is about to pay off big time. You just know he is going to find some incredibly lethal gear here. Xiao-Yun squats down, inspects a knife, and asks the vendor for something tougher. The merchant brags that these are the absolute sharpest blades in stock. He suggests buying a raw metal blank to sharpen and mold himself. But first he recommends a club. Finally, the merchant sees he is serious. The dealer realizes he is serious. This kid needs some heavy metal. He tells a neighbor to watch the stall and gestures to follow him. This kind of business is definitely not something they should discuss on the street. Leading the young man to a warehouse, the merchant shows off his private stash. He presents a crude, homemade firearm along with matching steel balls and cartridges. But this junk does not interest him, not even a little. Next, the seller presents a replica revolver that looks as dangerous as the original. Now they are talking. Xiao-Yun pays a deposit, wanting better gear. He states he is willing to spend about 2 million on weapons. He expects the merchant to fulfill every single request. The dealer is stunned. Honestly, who could blame him? Seeing a kid order this much is wild. To Xiao-Yun, this is routine, a trivial deal for any dealer. Suddenly, a sound outside. The panicked merchant immediately locks the door tight. Peering through the glass, he tells Xiao-Yun to write down his exact list. He will provide a location, and they will meet in 2 days to finish everything. They say their goodbyes, and the dealer escorts him out with a happy grin. He is absolutely thrilled to land such a highly profitable custom order. Suddenly, Liu Xiang calls out, shocked to see Xiao-Yun in the black market. Now it is clear where his money comes from, yet he is still bitter. He is still ignoring his beautiful fiancée, and Liu Xiang is absolutely sure. Xiao-Yun is just selling off family heirlooms to live in temporary comfort. He ignores his future entirely, but Xiao-Yun ignores the petty taunts. Instead, he remembers his mind's eye ability and decides to test it out. Activating his mind's eye, he sees the weapon dealer is positive. But Liu Xiang is deeply negative. Xiao-Yun smirks and starts teasing him. He laughs that the fat man is buying fake jewelry for beautiful Qiu Jing. But that is logical since she herself is a total fake. The dealer offers to have his crew beat up Liu Xiang, but Xiao-Yun stops him. He wants him alive since he has plans for this fool. The tough guys decide to teach this arrogant idiot a lesson at their boss's request. They do not even exchange words, immediately thrashing him for his bad mouth. Left lying in the dirt with boot prints covering his white jacket. Liu Xiang, dirty and defeated, swears revenge on Xiao-Yun. 2 days pass. Xiao-Yun looks with absolute satisfaction at the new stash of gear. He also gains rare physical enhancement potions as a sweet completion bonus. Best of all, the system rewards him with double the normal amount. Xiao-Yan decided to use the enhancers right away to test their true strength. He injected the liquid, instantly collapsing from a wave of searing pain. Normal potions barely helped, but this upgrade boosted his strength by almost 40%. Xiao-Yan wanted to push this physical enhancement to the absolute limit. He traded his remaining points for more potions, feeling an overwhelming force flood his muscles. The sheer energy was practically bursting out of his skin, demanding to be tested. Xiao-Yan looked around for a target, spotting a heavy metal bar nearby. The solid iron alloy rod looked absolutely indestructible, but he delivered a single, brutal kick. With ease, the metal warped instantly into a boomerang shape before he hurled it. Shrapnel flew as the rod shattered a reinforced concrete wall like glass. Now that is what I call real power. Those zombies do not stand a chance. He still had piles of weapons to store, and his spatial ring was the safest option. Xiao-Yan activated the relic, aiming its power directly at the massive crates of gear. In a flash, they vanished into his dimensional storage as he scanned the room. Only 2 days remained before the world would end, and time was running out. His preparations were complete, and he was finally ready to face the oncoming horde. Then he remembered the kind old man who had purchased his old apartment. That gentle soul had drained his entire savings just to secure a home for his granddaughter. Having lived through a brutal apocalypse once before, Xiao-Yan had a hardened heart. Still, he simply could not leave decent people to die. It is a small gesture, but it might just give them a fighting chance. At sunrise, he headed out to the address the elderly buyer had left him. Looking at the worn, crumbling building, it was clear they struggled to get by. They lived in a cramped, budget apartment located on the very top floor. Before knocking, Xiao-Yan realized he needed to pull out the supplies first. Doing this later would force him to explain where the hell they came from. With a quiet command, he pulled heavy boxes of food and medicine from his ring. The door creaked open, and the old man instantly started apologizing about his rent. He promised to pay next week, clearly not recognizing Xiao-Yan in the dim light. Stepping onto the landing, the elderly man stared in shock at the massive pile of boxes. Utterly confused, he asked what on earth the young landlord was doing here. Xiao-Yan told him they needed to get everything inside before the neighbors started nosing around. It only took a few minutes to haul every single crate into the apartment. The old man was stunned, noting how effortlessly the youth carried the heavy loads. Xiao-Yan was not even breathing heavily as he quietly inspected the entryway. The apartment was decent, and more importantly, the front door was solid and secure. He firmly advised the old man to ration everything, which should easily buy them 6 months. The elder looked completely lost, wondering why he was being given all these supplies. After all, they were scheduled to move into Xiao-Yan's old apartment next month. Their contract was set, but Xiao-Yan was barely paying attention to his words. His gaze was locked onto a small family photograph sitting on the nearby counter. He asked if the young girl in the picture was named Shan Shan. The old man confirmed it, suddenly realizing he had never mentioned her name before. He added that she was currently away at school, finishing up her classes. Once they finally moved into the new place, she would have a fresh start. With the paperwork ready, they planned to transfer her closer. Xiao-Yun recalled her crying in his past life. Her grandfather had died, leaving her drowned in immense, crushing guilt. He died trying to save her. Looking at her photo, Xiao-Yun swore to fix Shan Shan's tragic fate this time. He refused to let that brutal history repeat itself under his watch. The young man firmly told the grandfather that their relocation plans were canceled. By tomorrow, the entire world is going to turn into a nightmare of fire and blood. Under that brutal reality, normal things like comfortable houses and schools will not matter at all. They had to immediately head over to the school to pick up his granddaughter. He would guide them straight to a safe, pre-planned sanctuary. A devastating famine was coming, a starvation so brutal that few would survive. Realizing words were not enough, Xiao-Yun decided to demonstrate his power. He activated his storage ring, instantly absorbing all the heavy supply boxes nearby. The grandfather gasped in sheer disbelief, convinced he was witnessing actual black magic. Xiao-Yun knew explaining spatial energy to an elder was nearly impossible. So he kept it simple and offered an explanation he might actually accept. He claimed he possessed a unique superpower that allowed him to foresee the future. If they wanted to keep Shan Shan safe, they had to trust him on everything. Within minutes, the two of them hopped into the car and drove off. On the surface, the streets looked completely normal, showing zero signs of doom. Inside the schoolyard, teenage drama was unfolding just like any other day. An angry student accused Shan Shan of stealing her boyfriend. Before she could even respond, a hard slap landed right across her face. She tried to explain that she had no interest and he was just bothering her. But the jealous bullies were not interested in hearing any of her excuses. Suddenly, a tall girl delivered a vicious kick right into her stomach. She grabbed the poor girl by her hair, pulling her head back violently. Now look at this, things are about to get incredibly chaotic. The grandfather suddenly burst through the gates, rushing to protect his precious granddaughter. Seeing Shan Shan bruised and battered on the ground broke the old man's heart. But a pack of smug male students immediately stepped in to block him. They sneered, telling him to stay out of women's business. Furious at their absolute cruelty, the old man tried to push past them. Bullying classmate after classmate, where on earth were these teenagers' parents? Disaster loomed as one aggressive punk raised a heavy baseball bat. He swung it with full force, aiming straight for the grandfather's head. Out of nowhere, a hand clamped down on the bat, stopping it instantly. Xiao-Yun asked coldly if the kid really wanted to become a killer today. The punks glared, annoyed that a random stranger was interfering in their fun. They immediately turned to Shan Shan, demanding to know if this guy was her brother. Before she could speak, Xiao-Yun sent the loudmouth flying with a single kick. The heavy bat clattered right after him as the remaining bullies surrounded them. Shocked by this sudden defiance, they wanted to teach him a painful lesson. A bully lunged forward, aiming to knock Xiao-Yun completely unconscious. He swings a baseball bat right at his head, but Xiao-Yun ducks instantly. The thug stumbles forward from the momentum. Right then, Xiao-Yun grabs him. He grips the collar of his shirt and slams him face first into the asphalt. Another gangster steps up, brandishing a sharp knife, trying to take him down. But his fate turns out just as brutal. Xiao-Yun disarms him in a flash. He strips the blade away and shatters his knees with a cold strike. Next up, the mean girls who beat up Shan Shan realize looks won't save them. Xiao-Yun doesn't care. He reaches out and grabs the lead girl by her hair. She screams in terror, begging the cold stranger to let her go. Instead, he presses the blade right against her throat, her entire life flashes before her. Shan Shan shuts her eyes, while the other bully watches in pure horror. Bruised and beaten, they can only stare at this merciless guy. But instead of slitting her throat, Xiao-Yun just slices off her long hair. He warns her that long hair will only get her killed very soon in this world. Without explaining further, Xiao-Yun drops a pretty chilling promise. In 2 days, she will realize this short haircut just saved her life. With that settled, he tells Shan Shan and her grandfather to get moving. No time for small talk, they pile into the car and speed away. Inside the escape vehicle, the grandfather suddenly starts talking. He warns his granddaughter about a massive famine that they must survive. It sounds completely crazy. Shan Shan immediately calls him out on it. She figures some scammers are just trying to rip off an old man. Turning to the mysterious guy driving the car, she makes sure to thank him for saving her. Xiao-Yun honestly admits that he completely made up that whole story about the famine. He only said it to get her grandfather moving as fast as possible. But the truth, the actual end of the world is coming. Suddenly, a simple famine doesn't sound half as bad. Shan Shan is speechless. Xiao-Yun really doesn't want her thinking he's just another crazy scammer. He hands over his phone, telling her to check the latest viral videos. Shan Shan takes the screen, scrolling through the local news feeds. She scrolls through the feeds, trying to verify Xiao-Yun's insane claims. A crazed man is attacking random people and literally biting them. It looks like some extreme rabies. Meanwhile, a bizarre smog is rolling in. A weird smell fills the air, and trust me, it gets even worse. Every minute, more videos pop up showing people tearing into each other. But Xiao-Yun is totally calm. This is exactly how it begins. He quietly warns her that by tomorrow, the real nightmare starts in earnest. A dense, toxic fog will blanket the entire province. The toxic gas will mutate most of the population into flesh-eating zombies. The survivors will face a living hell as the infected attack them. Anyone who gets bitten will die and join the growing undead horde. Shan Shan has seen zombie movies, but this is real life. Actually believing in a real-life zombie apocalypse is pretty much impossible for her. Xiao-Yun simply smiles. It won't take long for her to believe it. Just a couple of days, right then they pull up to They hit a massive traffic jam, crawling along with all the other cars. The road practically turned into a parking lot, and the old man started panicking. If they got stuck here, the zombies would arrive before they reached safety. But Xiao-Yun knew things were not quite that urgent yet. They had a couple of days before total chaos erupted. Still, danger was everywhere. Right then, some hotshot in a luxury ride decided to cut them off. He kept aggressively shoving his way forward, forcing Xiao-Yun to slam the brakes. They nearly flew through the windshield, just to avoid smashing into his rear bumper. This absolute jerk in the black sedan did not even bother using a signal. He just whipped out of the emergency lane, causing total chaos, but Xiao-Yun refused to let him slide in. The guy kept forcing his way anyway. He even rolled down his window to scream threats and profanities at them. The old man begged him to stop, terrified of offending some wealthy power player. Better to avoid trouble, right? They sat crawling in traffic. For a whole hour they barely moved. Once it cleared, Shan Shan spotted them. That same black sedan was tailing them, driving incredibly aggressively. He swerved wildly, trying to run Xiao-Yun off the road. Xiao-Yun did not dodge out of fear, he just had bigger things to worry about. Wasting precious time was not an option when they needed to reach the shelter. Under normal circumstances, he probably would have just ignored this petty bully. But with the world ending tomorrow, why should he tolerate this garbage behavior? The angry driver suddenly pulled ahead and completely blocked both lanes. But Xiao-Yun effortlessly swerved right past him and sped off into the night. Fuming, the rich jerk called the police, demanding they pull the street cameras. He wanted that license plate and the home address. Talk about obsessed. It was late evening by the time they reached their safe zone. Specifically, the massive steel bunker Xiao-Yun built. He told his guests to rest. Tomorrow, the entire world would face a nightmare, and they needed their strength. The next morning arrived deceptively peaceful, with bright sunshine. Fluffy clouds drifted across a perfect blue sky, making the green fields look beautiful. Shan stepped into the corridor, stretching and yawning. She admitted she had not slept this well in ages, plus skipping school was definitely a nice bonus. Xiao-Yun offered to give them a tour. He wanted to show off their new fortress. The outer walls, he explained, were reinforced concrete, while the heavy gates were solid, remote-controlled steel. Without high-grade military explosives, neither humans nor monsters could break inside. But Xiao-Yun had one strict, unbending rule. Only the three of them were allowed inside, no exceptions. Even if desperate survivors showed up begging, they would not open the gates. They would leave them to die, simple as that. Once society falls apart, you can never truly predict what people will do. Trusting the wrong person means a quick death, outside the main facility. He had cleared out a massive buffer zone. This would act as a temporary holding area for any strangers while he was away. Absolutely nobody got inside the bunker. He then led them further. First, he shows them the food storage, explaining exactly how everything is distributed. After that, the young man uses his mind's eye, inspecting his new guests. He needs to know they are trustworthy before showing them the weapon stash. In an apocalypse, survival means staying in control and keeping your head. You can't let others pull your strings. Meanwhile, the granddaughter and the old man pick out the weapons they want to use going forward. Then, the system flashes a brand new task: reunite with an old partner and locate a missing friend. Handily, the system provides a rough coordinate for them. Before rushing off, Xiao-Yun warns them not to break any rules while he is gone. He leaps into his car, announcing that he needs to recruit more members. A capable squad is urgently needed, and he has no time to waste. He speeds off into the city. Meanwhile, inside a noisy nightclub, some guys are singing karaoke and having a blast. Soon, two friends head out to the restroom, still humming and dancing along to their favorite songs down the hall. On their way, they pass a couple. One guy accidentally bumps the girl. He immediately apologizes for the clumsy mistake, hoping to keep things civil. But the girl's companion is a complete jerk and instantly lashes out. He yells insults, catching our guy off guard with a sudden, aggressive shove. The force sends him flying into the wall. His friend rushes over. Checking if he is okay, the friend with glasses turns to the attacker. He points out that fighting is pointless and only thugs settle problems with fists. Hearing this, the meathead immediately targets his brand new victim. The bully sneers, asking who gave this brat permission to open his mouth. He grabs the four-eyed guy by the collar and hoists him into the air. The girl watches the display with absolute awe, utterly smitten by the violence. To her, he looks incredibly strong. Just then, a waiter steps out of the restroom. He is already feeling awful today, dealing with a nasty stomach bug. The last thing he wants is to mediate a stupid club brawl, but he tries. He steps in to break it up, but the bully barks at him to stay away. Apparently, even the waiter's boss wouldn't dare touch his expensive suit. Seeing the bully focus on the waiter, the two friends seize their chance. They sprint back to their private room, warning their friends about the hallway. Word is some wasted meathead in the corridor is picking fights with everyone. They only escaped because the poor waiter stepped in to save them. One friend gets annoyed, asking why they did not just beat the guy up. He even threatens to call some heavy hitters to settle the score. They try to relax, but suddenly the doors are kicked wide open. A hostile crew storms in, led by the bully who is dragging the beat. Waiter behind him, flanked by the girl and three heavy-looking thugs. The high school crew freezes. They are completely outmatched here. The ringleader orders his goons to drag the targets away from the table. He wants to teach them a lesson, without uttering a single word. One thug grabs a heavy glass bottle and brutally smashes it over a guy's head. Things are turning ugly, but thank goodness, a sleek black car finally pulls up outside. Xiao-Yun recognizes the street, realizing his old friend is right inside. He had gone to college there in his past life and knew this whole group of guys came from that same spot. Meanwhile, the bully asked his blonde girlfriend how she was feeling after he avenged her honor, but the girl remained completely unsatisfied. Because in reality, the offender had not actually been punished yet. Suddenly, Chong, with blood pouring from his cracked skull, grabbed a heavy glass ashtray from the table, desperate to get revenge, but another brutal blow cracked against his head. With a glass bottle, the hit knocked the young man completely unconscious to the cold floor. Chaos erupted as the entire group began violently throwing punches at each other. The waiter felt awful, nursing a fever while getting beaten by the thugs. Suddenly, the waiter's mind snapped. It went completely blank, lost in the dark. Wheezing and growling like a beast, he lunged straight into the chaotic brawl. He rushed the closest fighter and clamped his teeth deep into the man's shoulder. Two friends frantically tried to pry the crazed waiter off, but his strength was absolutely terrifying. He whipped around and sank his teeth into another helpless target. He would have mauled everyone there if Xiao-Yun hadn't suddenly grabbed his neck. With an iron grip, the young man hoisted the crazed waiter up, slamming him against the wall to completely immobilize him. He then ordered everyone to freeze. The fighters froze in absolute shock, immediately halting their wild brawl. Instead, they stared, completely focused on the powerful stranger standing before them. Xiao-Yun turned to the blonde Jiang Kai, asking if he had also been bitten. Receiving a silent headshake, Xiao-Yun ordered the guy to follow him. He demanded total obedience, with zero arguments or pointless questions. One bully tried to hold Jiang Kai back, insisting this fight was not over. Xiao-Yun glanced over at the sweating thug who had just been bitten on the shoulder. The sweating man admitted he had felt sick even before the bite. He had been feeling sick, and now this fresh bite sealed his fate. Xiao-Yun knew the infection would spread rapidly, especially with a bite so close to the brain. Ignoring the crowd, he dragged the thrashing waiter away by his neck. He hauled him straight out of the dining room and tossed the rabid man into the restroom, slamming the door shut. These fresh zombies could not open doors. Yet, now watch closely, because there is absolutely no time left to waste. Activating his powers, he coldly asked Jiang Kai which thugs needed to be cleared out. The blonde stood there completely dazed, having absolutely no idea who this guy even was. Meanwhile, the lead bully tried to step up and act tough. He warned Xiao-Yun to watch his mouth, only to get instantly punched in the face, shutting him up forever. Next was the sick guy who looked terrible. One heavy strike laid him out cold, leaving him completely motionless on the ground. Xiao-Yun glared around the room, asking if anyone else wanted a piece of him. Silence. He then told Jiang Kai to take his crew and wait outside. The remaining troublemakers in the karaoke room lost all their bravado and wanted out. They had nothing left to prove and just wanted to escape this nightmare. But Xiao-Yun blocked their path, standing like a solid wall in front of the door. He reminded the bully that he was drunk and almost killed his brother. With a single brutal punch, Xiao-Yun knocked the drunk thug out cold. He collapsed on the floor, helpless as Xiao-Yun prepared for the next move. Settle the score later. Xiao-Yun rushed out of the restaurant and locked the doors, ignoring the angry threats echoing behind him. Right then, the bitten thug began transforming into a zombie. His crazed eyes glowed as saliva dripped from his mouth. Overwhelmed by a monstrous hunger, his former friends became his sudden lunch. A panicked manager demanded to know what happened inside. Xiao-Yun urged him to lock up, keep everyone out, and call police. For a massive rabid flu outbreak, this was highly urgent. Xiao-Yun's friends were waiting in the hallway, and he quickly started to guide them away. Horrific, guttural sounds now echoed from deep behind The restaurant doors, the staff had never heard anything so terrifying before, and hesitated to believe some random guest warning them about a sudden, rabid flu outbreak. They decided to check the live security camera feeds. Immediately, a blood-chilling nightmare unfolded right before the manager's eyes as they watched the footage. Customers inside the karaoke bar were literally tearing into each other, desperately needing medical help and police intervention. Outside, Xiao-Yun urged his friends to move faster as things grew extremely dangerous. Group piled into their car, fleeing into the dark. Meanwhile, a blonde passenger named Jiang Kai asked the driver who he was. Xiao-Yun introduced himself, explaining he was hired to protect a client whose identity remained entirely hidden. Once the initial shock faded, the friends snapped out of it and tried to make sense of the madness. The news claimed the rabid mushroom outbreak was fake, but they saw the truth. There was no cure for this virus, and everything was about to get much worse. Looking out the car windows, they watched in absolute horror as infected people attacked and bit innocent passersby. Currently, it was just a localized outbreak, but countless people were already silent carriers of the virus. Soon, everything would completely spiral out of control. Xiao-Yun warned them that survival meant listening to him without question. Everyone nodded in agreement. His system mission to locate his old allies was finally complete, and Xiao-Yun opened the system shop to browse new gear. He decided to spend his points on a skill manual. Soon, the vehicle fell silent. As heavy distrust began brewing within the group, it was a problem to resolve. Xiao-Yun recalled his past life when Jiang Kai sobbed and claimed they were brothers to the very end, but their entire dormitory was slaughtered by the undead due to one close friend's betrayal. The burning question was, who was the actual traitor? Meanwhile, Qiu Ting called him, anxiously asking when the promised supplies would arrive. Total chaos ruled the streets, making it impossible to go outside. Xiao-Yun promised to deliver the food the moment he was clear. Suddenly, a heavy knock rattled her door. Qiu Ting hung up and cautiously went to check. It was her neighbor Wen Shuya, who frantically explained that Uncle Li from the first floor was dragged away. She didn't know the full details, but she saw police cars and an ambulance near the building. It seemed the deadly rabid mushroom virus was not just a horror story. When asked if Xu Xiang had managed to escape as well, Wen was completely fed up with guys who never kept their promises. She urged her friend to tell Xu Zhang about Xiao-Yun's hidden supply warehouse. The girls realized that Xiao-Yun somehow knew about the impending outbreak. He probably wanted to get rich selling food, and Wen wanted that cash for herself. She planned to steal it as soon as Xu Zhang and his men raided those warehouses. Meanwhile, Xiao-Yun's car finally pulled into the perimeter of his massive hideout. The classmates immediately gaped at the scale and sheer security of the compound. They couldn't help but call it an absolute, real-life fortress. Xiao-Yun's grandfather and his sister ran out to greet the group. They were incredibly relieved to see everyone back safe and sound. Xiao-Yun reassured them before introducing the new arrivals, Jiang Zai and his classmates. From now on, they would all be living here under one roof. The girl welcomed them, trusting that Xiao-Yun made the right call. She gladly welcomed them, and Xiao-Yun asked his grandfather to step in. He wanted the old man to show them around and explain the house rules. Right away, one student demanded weapons so they could help defend the perimeter. A clever idea, but they still needed to earn their keep first. The smart student quietly whispered this warning to his anxious friend. Xiao-Yun told them not to worry, promising weapons once they settled in. First, he wanted to check on the wounded student in the medical bay. Afterward, the newcomers were sent to wash up and change into clean clothes. But one guy was still incredibly bitter about not getting any weapons. To him, without guns, they were completely defenseless and had their hands tied. The smart student argued back, saying they should just be grateful to Xiao-Yun. Jiang Zai explained that Xiao-Yun was hired to protect them. Because of that, they absolutely needed to trust his decisions. The bitter classmate kept insisting that Xiao-Yun had dark motives. He pointed out how harshly their wounded friend was treated in that prison-like medical bay. He desperately tried to convince the others to strike Xiao-Yun first. He argued it was far better than sitting around waiting to be betrayed. If they took him down, they could easily seize this fortress for themselves. He suggested jumping the old man and the girl once Xiao-Yun left. But seeing his friends staring back in absolute horror, he quickly backed down. He laughed it off, mocking them for having absolutely no sense of humor. Jiang Zai let out a relieved breath, telling him not to joke like that. The apocalypse had barely even started, and he was already planning a mutiny. If Xiao-Yun meant them harm, he would have locked them up long ago. The instigator quietly realized these weaklings had no spine to fight back. In a world like this, only the ruthless would rise to the top. Once he took control, his naive friends would merely become his lifelong pawns. Later that night, Shunbo approached Xiao-Yun to give him an update. He reported that all the students had safely settled into their rooms. The wounded kid was stable, and every single exit was heavily secured. Xiao-Yun warmly thanked the old man and his granddaughter for their hard work. He urged them to rest, knowing the true chaos was only just beginning. Xiao-Yun asks the grandfather and granddaughter to keep a close eye on everyone. They must watch the wounded Chang and the rest of the boys. A traitor could be hiding. Once alone, Xiao-Yun heads to the warehouse. Time to check his stats and open the system shop to spend points. He buys the Apocalypse Cultivator supply box and the Armed Containment box. Instantly, a massive pile of food and weapons materializes right before his eyes. Right now, cash is useless. In the apocalypse, supplies are everything. Food and weapons are about to become the ultimate currency. The next day, a convoy of vehicles speeds toward the shelter. They screech to a halt right in front of the gates. The location is correct. The leader prepares his men to infiltrate. 30 minutes pass. They desperately try to storm the high fence. But it is a complete dead end for the thugs. The perimeter walls are incredibly thick. The gates are too sturdy. They cannot make a single dent in the defense. The leader is furious, who builds fortress doors for a house. Fortunately for them, the gang came prepared for this exact situation. They open their trucks and pull out heavy wooden crates. Inside are rows of glass bottles packed with flammable liquid. Molotov cocktails. They grab the bottles and start throwing them. Fire rains over the fence and into the compound. The bandits wait outside, hoping the gates will burn down quickly. Inside, the young survivors led by Shan rush to fight the fire. They use extinguishers and water. Xiao-Yun was absolutely right. Danger is already here, and Xiao-Yun moves quickly. He grabs heavy weapons and heads up the watchtower with Shenbo. From above, they get a clear view of the attackers. Shenbo instantly recognizes the man leading the hostile gang. It is the same arrogant driver from the road earlier. The gangster spots Xiao-Yun and immediately orders his men to kill. He threatens to burn the entire base to the ground. Xiao-Yun remains calm. He shouts down a final warning. He gives them exactly 5 minutes to leave before things get ugly. But the thugs are foolish. They trust their numbers. They prepare to throw more Molotov cocktails over the wall. Suddenly, a new system quest pops up. Eliminate the threat. Shenbo wants to fire a warning shot, but Xiao-Yun disagrees. These criminals already ignore the law. A warning will not work. They are willing to burn innocent people alive just to get what they want. Leaving them alive only invites more danger later on. There is no other way. Xiao-Yun raises his gun. He aims carefully at the leader of the thugs. He pulls the trigger and fires his very first shot. The bullet hits the leader's shoulder, shattering his confidence. The gangster drops to his knees, screaming in pure agony as blood flows. A thug screams in pain, begging for help as Xiao-Yun curses his rusty, out-of-practice skills. The missed shot tells the bandits everything. They realize these people will not back down or surrender. Seeing absolutely zero fear in anyone, the terrified gangsters scramble toward their cars, desperate to escape. But escape is not an option. Xiao-Yun has other plans, and he is not letting anyone leave. He hates waiting, preferring to end this nuisance right here and now. A relentless hail of bullets rains down, dropping the wounded and dying gangsters onto the cold pavement. Somehow, a few surviving thugs scramble into their vehicle and drag their bleeding boss inside with them. Shomo points out that the bastards are trying to flee, but Xiao-Yun just smiles. He tells his grandfather not to sweat it, calmly revealing a heavy automatic rifle. He unleashes a savage burst of gunfire directly at the car, completely shredding their escape plan. Nobody is leaving this place alive. Shomo watches in awe at the kid's flawless reload. The sheer speed and precision are unreal. Even back in his own prime, Shomo could never shoot like this. It is brutally obvious now, this desperate group is not making it out of here. The arrogant thugs who wanted to make tough demands are officially wiped out. Xiao-Yun tells his grandfather to call the crew and clear the area. But suddenly, a brilliant idea strikes him. This early phase of the apocalypse is prime training time. Turning these dead scumbags into zombies would actually give the guys some much-needed target practice. He tells everyone to hold off on cleaning up. There is absolutely no rush. Leaving the corpses scattered across the road is all part of his master plan. Soon after, another convoy pulls up. Lai Zhang stares out, sizing up this new territory. He looks through the glass, curious about the heavily guarded sanctuary they have stumbled upon. Riding alongside him are two gorgeous women, including Xiao-Yun's ex-fiancée and her best friend. Qing rolls her eyes, watching her friend shamelessly flirt with the heavy Shu Xiang. Once the vehicle grinds to a halt, the ladies are ordered to negotiate with Xiao-Yun. They need to secure their entry inside, but Wen is extremely hesitant to step out. Maybe she is plotting to seduce the fat Shu Xiang, so she starts whining instead. She complains loudly about her painful, uncomfortable high heels, but friendship has its limits. Qing is having absolutely none of it, violently dragging her reluctant friend out of the car. Lai Zhang barks orders for his men to stand ready while the girls approach the gate. Nearby, backup vehicles packed with armed thugs wait just out of sight. They are locked and loaded, ready to strike the moment their boss gives the signal. As they walk, Wen plays dumb, acting like she has no clue what is happening. But Qing is not stupid. She is completely immune to her friend's pathetic little mind games. Wen sighs, admitting she only dressed up to impress Xiao-Yun, hoping he is still single. They finally reach the perimeter fence, but what they see stops them dead in their tracks. The entire ground outside is completely littered with bloodied, lifeless bodies. It is glaringly obvious that a massive, deadly gunfight went down right here. Pure horror sets in. Can you blame them for wanting to turn right back around? But Qing hesitates, guessing two rival gangs fought over Xiao-Yun's massive stockpile. She assumes the poor kid is already dead, buried under all that rubble. She wonders if there is still food abandoned inside that massive warehouse. They decide to head back and let Shu Xiang handle this mess himself. Right then, one of the supposedly dead bodies slowly lifts its head. Terrified, the girls rush to the heavy gate, banging wildly for help. Inside, Xiao-Yun watches safely, completely untouched by the chaos outside. Right then, Shan spots them from her high perch in the observation tower and yells. "Who are you and what are you doing out here?" she demands, eyes narrowing. The two girls look up, shouting back that one of them is Xiao-Yun's fiancée, while the other is just her best friend. Instantly, Shan calls down to Xiao-Yun. "Hey, your fiancé is actually at the gate," she says. The visitors look around. They instantly realize Xiao-Yun has found a new girl, but they mask their bitter rage. A hidden mission is more important than their petty pride. Even with a heavy crossbow in hand, they trust Xu Xiang to crush anyone inside. Kui Jing sneers under her breath, whispering to Wen that they have nothing to fear. Xu Xiang and his heavily armed thugs will butcher Xiao-Yun the second that main gate swings open. When Xiao-Yun finally steps out, his chest tightens at the sight of his traitorous ex. Standing beside her is her loyal sidekick. He glares cold steel, demanding their business here. Watch closely, knowing their wicked minds, he silently triggers his mind's eye. It pays off instantly. Wen puts on a sweet face, claiming they are just checking in. True friends do not need an invite to visit, she lies, smiling through her teeth. We were so worried about you, she coos. Xiao-Yun sees right through it. He flatly demands to know where their precious backer, Xu Xiang, is hiding right now. How many guns did they bring to this little ambush? Answer me. Ignoring their stammered lies, he raises his rifle and unleashes a deafening warning burst. Bullets rip the dirt right at their feet, no warnings. He is not aiming to kill them just yet, only to shatter their fragile confidence. It works, shaking. Kui Jing immediately starts screaming insults at her former lover. She believes his past affection makes her untouchable, screeching that she does not fear him. He actually does not want to waste his precious lead on her, not when others can. The heap of dormant bodies piling near the gate is about to wake up hungry. He wants these betrayers torn apart by the very monsters they tried to feed him. Right on cue, the dead wake up starving. They sniff the air, locking onto the warm, living flesh of the terrified girls. To make it a fair game, Xiao-Yun fires a few rounds to herd the monsters. Run, he warns, this is your only chance. The girls bolt down the street in sheer panic. Terrified, they flee as the dead pack onto their heels. Meanwhile, Xu Xiang watches. He has no clue where this horde emerged from. Scared, he screams at his men. Turn the trucks around, get us out of here now, he yells, completely terrified. Desperate to survive, Kui Jing makes a choice that will absolutely turn your stomach. Without hesitating, she grabs Wen's heavy bag and throws it hard, tripping her friend. Wen crashes hard onto the dirty asphalt. The pursuing dead are instantly upon her. Screaming in agony, she watches Kui Jing sprint away into the dark streets. She shrieks curses with her final breaths as rotting teeth rip into her throat. Kui Jing keeps running, panting that her weak friend deserved to die anyway. Back at the fortress, Xiao-Yun and Shan Shan watch the gruesome feast in silence. Devoured in seconds right before their eyes, it is brutal. Shan Shan realizes they do not stay dead, they rise. Xiao-Yun nods quietly, explaining how an otherworldly contagion is flooding the atmosphere. Anyone left out in the open is a ticking time bomb waiting to turn. Quickly turned into zombies, for the remaining survivors, even a tiny cut or exhaustion could trigger the sickness. Xiao-Yun just got a new system quest. To clean the streets, he immediately asked Shan to gather everyone. Few minutes later, the team gathered inside the main shelter meeting room. Xiao-Yun explained they needed to stay locked inside the shelter for now. Keeping doors and windows shut tight, their bodies needed this vital time. To adapt to the virus, lowering mutation risks. Meanwhile, a worried Zaijiang was sick with worry about his best friend, Chang, resting in the infirmary. The poor guy lay completely unresponsive after his brutal injury at the karaoke bar. It was obvious his condition was spiraling fast. He was sweating like crazy, his veins bulging, and he was not regaining consciousness. Outside on the streets, the world had descended into pure horror. Buildings burned, riots erupted everywhere, and lawless thugs looted whatever they wanted. Terrified residents stared out their windows, witnessing the complete breakdown of society. With law and order gone, Shenji told his wife he had to go to their warehouse tonight to grab the last of their food supplies while they stayed safe inside, warning them never to open the door for anyone else. His family was absolutely terrified of the madness unfolding right outside their walls. Scared to death of being left defenseless without him. Then, a sudden, heavy knock. Someone was in the hallway. Shenji gestured for them to stay silent and Keep calm, gripping a golf club tight, he crept closer to ask who was there. Relieved, he saw his old buddy, the store manager Yang Tao. But this reunion was far from friendly. In an instant, Shenji was slammed down onto the cold floor. Yang Tao watched with a sick grin as his goons pinned Shenji down. He could not comprehend this betrayal. He and Yang Tao had always been on great terms, or so he thought. Yang Tao spat back, claiming Shenji always treated him like a worthless servant, constantly looking down on him and stealing his hard-earned money. Shenji desperately tried to remind his former friend of how much he had helped him financially over the years, but talking to this madman was useless. Yang Tao only cared about one thing: the location of Shenji's wholesale warehouse and getting his hands on the keys to force cooperation and prevent him from fighting back. These ruthless thugs brought out their ultimate threat. They grabbed his terrified young son, Dong, who began screaming in absolute panic. Desperate to protect his mother, the brave little boy bit one of the thugs, who instantly reacted by violently hurling the child straight across the room. Shenji watched in horror as his family was brutalized, unable to take it anymore. He begged them to stop, and Yang Tao agreed to spare them on one condition: they must go to the warehouse right now. Shortly after, they all arrived at Shenji's massive wholesale warehouse. But the thugs were in for a very disappointing surprise. The place was nearly empty, with just a couple of stray boxes sitting on the floor. Shenji quickly explained that they had already sold off their bulk inventory. But Yang Tao noticed something: even a small stash would last them forever if they could somehow track down Xiao-Yun. Shenji strongly warned against. He knew because he had seen weapons on the young man during a food delivery. It was clear now: Xiao-Yun had been preparing for this disaster all along. Yang Tao didn't care. Xiao-Yun was Zhang's problem now. Besides, his family's safety depended entirely on the boy's hidden supplies. Suddenly, horrifying wheezing and low growling noises started echoing through the dark shelter. To their absolute horror, the sounds came directly from Chen Chong. He had been resting in the infirmary, but the infection still took hold of him. They kept him tightly strapped to the bed, but he still thrashed to break free. One classmate quietly suggested putting him down, a sudden, terrifying option. Shock and confusion rippled through the group, but the boy insisted it was necessary. He argued that Chang was already gone. If he broke loose, they would all die. Xiao-Yun agreed. The turned had zero hope of ever recovering. They never get better. Xiao-Yun calmly drew a knife from his pocket. He offered the blade directly to the student who had just demanded Chang's death. The boy froze. He definitely had not expected Xiao-Yun to call his bluff. Xiao-Yun thrust the weapon forward, ordering him to end Chang right now. He remembered how this guy wanted a weapon. Well, now he had one. Here was his chance to save them all and end his friend's misery. Yungsha slowly gripped the handle, eyes locked on the gleaming metal. He turned to Xiao-Yun, declaring he would carry this heavy burden alone. He would take full responsibility. Xiao-Yun asked if he was truly ready. One wrong move, and he would cross the line into becoming a murderer. Yungsha insisted he trusted Xiao-Yun and had no doubts about this choice. This had to be done. Gripping the hilt, the boy stepped forward. He stood over the bed of the boy, who was no longer his friend. He was no longer human, just a feral beast thrashing in chains. Still driving a blade into someone you knew. Absolute nightmare fuel. He raised the blade, but right before it struck, Xiao-Yun grabbed his wrist. The edge stopped mere millimeters from Chang's face. Wait. He ordered everyone to leave. Things had changed, and they needed to regroup. They would deal with Chang later, as the others filed out in silence. Xiao-Yun stayed behind, stepping closer to the snarling beast on the bed. He leaned down, whispering to the creature that he had a special job for him. Outside, another car screeched to a halt. The driver was completely panicked. He lost control, smashing directly into a nearby pole. Zhang stumbled out, dazed. His head was bleeding, and his luck had officially run out today. Grunting in pain, he stared at the shelter, trying to find a way inside. But right behind him, a shadow lurked, a flesh-eater lunged. It was too fast. Sharp, rotting teeth sank deep into Zhang's arm. Adrenaline spiking, he violently threw the disgusting creature off of him. He scrambled back to his car, grabbing a heavy iron pipe from the trunk. He spun around and shattered the monster's skull with one brutal swing. Zhang panted, knowing more of those things were bound to show up soon. Limping toward the entrance, a cold, icy dread began creeping up his spine. Inside, the survivors had no idea what was about to walk through that door. Armed with weapons, they set off on their first hunt. Shan Shan was covered from head to toe in protective pads, complaining that it made it hard to move. But Xiao-Yang explained that negotiation with these monsters was completely off the table. These flesh-eating mutants were vastly stronger than normal, everyday humans. Since his friends lacked any real combat experience, they could easily get hurt. Safety gear was absolutely essential as the group prepared to fight. Suddenly, Xiao-Yang warned everyone that zombies were lurking very close by. They had entered the monster's detection range. Xiao-Yang carefully monitored the approaching undead from behind a corner, raising his hand to signal everyone to be alert. He urged his friends to remember everything he had taught them. A zombie was already charging, meaning they had to stick to the plan. They needed to cover each other. Luckily, Xiao-Yang was incredibly fast. He easily dodged when the monster lunged, yelling that the perfect moment to strike only comes when the beast misses. They had to seize that exact split second and take quick, lethal aim at the temple or the back of the neck. Lashan smashed the zombie right on the skull, but the impact injured his arm. These skulls are dense. Talk about a lesson learned the hard way. Instantly, the beast retaliated against the defenseless boy, but at the absolute last second, Lashan managed to block with his sword, the zombie's teeth grinding against steel. That quick reaction saved his life. Seeing the struggle, Chang'e rushed in with a heavy baseball bat, smashing the monster directly in the neck. Xiao-Yang watched closely as the group continued to batter the creature. Knowing that a single strike is never enough, suddenly another walker approached. From behind, everyone was too busy killing the first threat to notice. The second ghoul opening its jaws, ready to bite right down on Xiao-Yang's neck. Fortunately, Chang'e screamed a warning just in time. Reacting instantly, Xiao-Yang grabbed the monster's head and slammed it down. He used this terrifying moment to teach them a very valuable lesson, reminding them to always scan their surroundings and never drop their guard. Meanwhile, Zhang Qi was carefully approaching the shelter, trying to scale the perimeter wall. But he quickly noticed that mutants had breached the outer buffer zone. He assumed the shelter owner was already dead and crept forward silently. Moving past some abandoned bandit cars, he caught the sound of familiar voices, specifically Xiao-Yang's. Peeking over, he realized that Xiao-Yang had assembled a squad to hunt down these mutants, but as Zhang Qi had no idea a silent threat was lurking directly beneath him. Under that very car, the infected girl Xiao-Yun had finally awakened. Now a full-blown zombie, she spotted a pair of living legs nearby. Overcome by an insatiable, overwhelming hunger, she lunged out from the shadows. She threw herself at Zhang Qi, desperate to rip into his flesh. Right as her teeth were about to sink into his skin, a loud shot blew her head off. Xiao-Yang lowered his smoking rifle. Recognizing the unexpected guest, he asked Zhang Qi what he was doing there. Overjoyed to have finally found the young man, Zhang Qi rushed forward to embrace him warmly, treating him like long-lost family. But Xiao-Yun immediately noticed Zhang's infected arm, which was already showing advanced signs of zombie mutation. Raising his gun, Xiao-Yun prepared to end his former ally's life. But Zhang begged him to listen, promising to stay back and not take another step. The infected man knew his time was short, 12 hours left at best. But before he succumbed, the man desperately needed Xiao-Yun's help with a massive personal crisis. His former partner, Yang Tao, had kidnapped Zhang's wife and innocent child, demanding all of Xiao-Yun's survival hoard as ransom to set them free. Zhang knew he was no saint and had done some terrible things to others. Yet he was not purely evil, and his family did not deserve this nightmare. He knew the ruthless gang would never let his loved ones live. They would suffer a fate far worse than death, so Zhang begged for mercy. Xiao-Yun realized this desperate plea was purely out of self-interest. Still, the man had been incredibly useful in securing their current resources. Besides, the fortress had plenty of space, and they needed more women. Their male-dominated camp needed balance. A system alert cut off his thoughts. A new quest popped up: rescue the infected man's captive family. Xiao-Yun accepted the mission and promised the dying man that his family would be safe. Overcome with relief, Zhang fell to his knees and bowed his head to the ground. He swore that if he could not repay Xiao-Yun now, he would serve him next. In the next life, he would be his absolute loyal servant. Then Zhang made one final, incredibly heavy request to his savior. Kill me. He didn't want to turn into a mindless, bloodthirsty monster. Xiao-Yun ignored the plea. Instead, he ordered Shan to fetch a bicycle. And honestly, her confused face is priceless, but she still silently obeys. She knew better than to question her boss. Xiao-Yun then ordered Zhang to ride away. He must go far, avoid humanity, and find a lonely place to hide. The leader offered no explanations, urging the dying man that time was running out. No arguments, just trust the plan and act. Zhang nodded silently, understanding. He whispered his final thanks, mounted the bicycle, and rode into the ruins. He pedaled furiously, desperate to put distance between himself and any living souls. Tears blurred his vision as the virus clawed at his humanity. His only remaining thoughts were of his beloved wife and son. Back at the shelter, the survivors united to clean up the bloody aftermath. They dragged the rotting corpses into a massive pile and doused them in fuel. Searing heat blasted their faces as they set the mountain of flesh ablaze. Watching the dead burn to ash, Xiao-Yun turned to his exhausted crew. He noted they could easily handle small groups of 2 or 3 roamers. But they were still not prepared for a full, raging horde. One mistake in a crowd, and they would all be torn to pieces. Glancing over his crew, Xiao-Yun ordered them to follow him inside. He guided them to a restricted warehouse, normally locked to the public. Xiao-Yun pulled a heavy brass key from his pocket, the key to the armory. He announced his dangerous plan to raid the infested city alone under the cover of night. The survival of the entire fortress now rested on the shoulders of Shang-Bo. Xiao-Yun handed him the key, and Shang-Bo immediately stepped up to accept the duty. The boys head into the city with Xiao-Yun, knowing it is too dangerous to go alone. The streets are absolute chaos, but Xiao-Yun refuses to bring the kids any further. Convinced they are not ready and will only slow him down, he hopes that under Shang-Bo's leadership, they can keep the shelter safe. Safe inside his car, Xiao-Yun reviews his system notifications and account status. But the store is totally bare, and the system updates are crawling. He cannot go out there empty-handed. He needs gear now. Xiao-Yun activates a manual system update and waits for new gear to appear. The wait pays off. He unlocks a piece of high-tech equipment. Inside the box lies a physical strength enhancement serum. Xiao-Yun injects it immediately. The dashboard flashes like a stun grenade. The cabin lights up like a flashbang grenade. Then, another surprise pops up. A second strengthening serum promises to multiply his power by 5. Xiao-Yun does not hesitate. He activates it right away to test it. Survival depends on raw power, and he needs every advantage he can get. The screen shows his physical stats have spiked to 2.5 times normal. He also gains a spatial ring and the eye of the mind. Meanwhile, things are looking pretty grim over at Yongshan's apartment. The tension is rising fast, even though no monsters have breached the room. A terrified little boy weeps openly, clutching his mother for safety. She desperately whispers that his father will come back and fix everything. Right then, the door splinters open. Armed thugs invade the bedroom. They trap Jang's family inside, eyes locking onto the mother with pure malice. Tearing her away from her child, they mockingly promise to have some fun. She fights back with everything she has, but she is completely outnumbered. Her clothes are ripped as tears stream down her face. She begs for mercy. She pleads with her captors to stop, but her cries fall on deaf ears. Her screams only excite them. Her little boy runs forward, trying to protect her. Hearing the noise, the ruthless leader of the gang steps in to restore order. He warns his men to keep it quiet so they do not attract any monsters. The thugs invite their boss to join in, but he flatly refuses. He coldly reminds them that their actual mission is still not complete. There is no time for distractions if they push her too far. Her husband might snap. A desperate man with nothing to lose is dangerous. That would end badly for everyone. The boss promises them a reward instead. Once they secure the goods from her husband, they can have her all they want. The men grudgingly admit he is right, backing off for now. They are frustrated but agree to wait, leaving the trembling woman alone. Back on the streets, ravenous hordes of zombies are prowling for fresh prey. And Xiao-Yun is driving right through the middle of the nightmare. He focuses on the incredible physical enhancements flowing through his veins. He is incredibly pleased with how sharp his reflexes and physical coordination have become. His physical limits have been absolutely shattered, but a new problem arises. He quickly realizes that navigating the city by car is practically impossible. Abandoned vehicles block every single path. He is officially stuck. He chose to leave the car behind so he would not attract any unwanted attention. Moving forward on foot was the plan, but then he caught a very familiar sound. A guttural growl echoed as several zombies lunged at him with terrifying speed. Xiao-Yun leaped backward in a flash before the monsters could even touch him. Instantly, he summoned his weapon right out of his storage ring, a massive cleaver sword. This heavy blade was perfect for slicing monsters. His upgraded body felt absolutely incredible. His physical strength had reached ridiculous heights, with just a few quick swings. Zombie heads were rolling all over the asphalt. Xiao-Yun realized right then and there. No contest, he completely outclassed these basic monsters in strength. But he still needed to test how his power compared to ordinary humans. Even his basic senses, like his hearing and vision, were insanely sharp now. Then he heard it. Faint, desperate cries for help echoed from far away. Down the road, a massive swarm of zombies was hammering against a supermarket entrance. They were desperately trying to break in, while the survivors inside panicked. Terrified people piled heavy shelves and boxes against the doors, expecting the worst. A little boy wept silently. He truly believed they were going to die. But his father held him tight, insisting those monsters would never get inside. Nearby, a former police officer quietly urged the father to stay calm. Scaring the kid further would only make things worse for everyone in there. Suddenly, a strange noise caught their attention, and it was completely unexpected. Had those brain eaters actually found a way inside? The dread in that room was real. 13:21. Trembling, they stared at the glass front and gasped at a horrifying sight. One of the monsters had the top of its head cleanly sliced off. The creature collapsed, sliding slowly down the glass pane in a smear of blood. The officer quickly instructed the father and son to start dismantling their barricade. He wanted to open the exit so he could step outside and investigate. Pushing the glass door open a crack, the brave officer peeked out. He was stunned to see that the entire horde lay dead on the pavement. Confusion filled the room. Then the little boy made a wild guess. Maybe some kind of powerful mutant was the one who saved them. His father had never heard of mutants, so his son quickly explained. When regular zombies evolve to get faster and stronger, they turn into mutants. The boy knew this from books and comics. his father just scoffed at him. Now he understood why his grades were terrible. He only played video games. Deciding it was time to move, the survivors cautiously stepped out together. They kept their eyes peeled in every direction, scanning for danger. Leading the way, the officer carefully guided them through the empty streets. Meanwhile, Xiao-Yun stood nearby, watching them from the middle of the road. System alert, a notification popped up for an accidental rescue. Spotting him, the kid instantly believed this was a mutant. He did not look like a zombie, standing there so calm and fearless. But the officer shook his head, saying he looked like a normal survivor. Hearing this, Xiao-Yun walked over with a friendly smile on his face. He lightly teased the kid, telling him to stop imagining things. Real mutants are not that common yet, he explained, giving them instant relief. The officer realized this stranger was just another survivor like them, and he warned the young man not to wander alone in such a dangerous place. It was much safer to stick together. Curious, Xiao-Yun asked who they were, and the officer explained they were a search party out looking for supplies. Most of the surviving civilians were waiting back at Zhongshan Garden, while this small team had scavenged a nearby supermarket only to be hit with a surprise ambush. The boy's father gently suggested to Xiao-Yun that it was much safer to tag along, especially since Captain Lee was armed and they could easily handle any stray undead to keep him safe. Xiao-Yun decided to play along, politely accepting their generous offer with a grateful nod. As the small group moved through the ruins, the officer warned them about a ruthless band of scavengers lurking around the Bushin mansion who killed any unlucky survivors they came across. He advised them to keep quiet about those criminals and to remain highly suspicious of other survivors, since peaceful people were extremely rare. Suddenly, the young boy shrieked at the top of his lungs. He had just spotted a bloodthirsty monster sneaking up behind Captain Lee. It was incredibly close, and the captain was in deep trouble as the creature lunged right at him, snapping its rotten jaws. But this captain was a true, hardened soldier, and his lightning-fast instincts saved his life. He fired a clean shot, killing the beast instantly. Unfortunately, that loud gunshot was a massive mistake because the noise immediately echoed through the streets, drawing every nearby zombie right to them. They were all swarming their position now. Captain Lee desperately racked his brain for a way out of this mess when his eyes locked onto an old, abandoned bus parked nearby. The group scrambled toward it, desperately hoping they could lock themselves inside and buy just a few more precious minutes. Xiao-Yun kept his cool and watched silently, quickly analyzing their grim situation. Running away in a blind panic would only bring more monsters down on them. The bus offered temporary shelter, but it was also a deadly dead end. Everyone scrambled inside just in time, with the ravenous horde snapping at their very heels. Captain Lee barked orders to sweep the aisles and check under every single seat to make sure they were actually alone. He knew they had been moving too slowly, and the entire neighborhood now knew they were here. Things grew desperate fast. The captain struggled to pull the heavy bus doors shut, as decaying limbs and bodies tried to force their way inside. Without saying a word, Xiao-Yun stepped up and placed his hand right on the door frame. Instantly, the captain felt a wave of absolute shock, because even with his own massive build, he could not budge the metal door. Yet Xiao-Yun held it steady, promising them that nothing was getting through. He ignored the captain's stunned questions entirely. Meanwhile, the other officers rushed to help their comrades, shouting to smash the windows and fight back. They wasted no time, armed with metal pipes and heavy scrap metal. They bashed the skulls of any undead trying to climb inside. Captain Lee checked his remaining magazines, realizing with growing dread that they simply lacked the firepower to survive this. Suddenly, Xiao-Yun handed the captain a powerful crossbow, which he had quietly pulled from his spatial ring, offering a quick explanation. Xiao-Yun told Captain Lee he simply found the weapon on the street. The captain did Not ask any more questions. Within minutes, all the zombies drawn to their location were wiped out, their bodies piling up near the bus. The boy was thrilled by the chaos. He knew this insanely close escape had worked out in their favor twice for a reason no coincidence. Now they were survivors forged in this apocalypse. Xiao-Yun turned to the group and told them to stay on high alert, no more stupid mistakes. They had to remain dead silent and watchful. The night at the shelter passed in total silence. Nobody tried to breach the gates. The residents once again finished patrolling and were heading to bed when Yemen offered to stand watch tonight. This shocked his friends, who never expected such effort from the notoriously lazy and cowardly Yemen. Xiao-Yun accepted the offer since Yemen had volunteered. After all, it was best for everyone else to head to their rooms. Yemen promised to wake them if any danger approached, then headed to the tower. Yemen spent some time waiting there, biding his time until he was sure everyone in the base had fallen into a deep sleep. He had to act fast and deal with things before Xiao-Yun got back. Old man Shangbo was fast asleep in his room, with the armory key sitting right by his head. This key was Yemen's exact target. As he crept down from the tower and slipped quietly into the old man's room, he managed to grab the key, but right then Shangbo suddenly woke up and leaped out of bed, stunned. He had no idea what the kid was doing in his room. Yemen had no intention of talking to the old man and knocked him out with a hard blow to the head. Yemen bolted, but the old man stayed conscious enough to cry out, shouting after the fleeing thief to get the attention of the other boys. Woken up by the shouting, everyone rushed out of their rooms, not knowing what happened. Shangbo, holding his sore head, yelled out that Yemen had stolen the key to the armory and had to be stopped. Everyone immediately ran after their friend, completely confused by his bizarre actions, trying to catch up and get answers. Yemen managed to block the hallway, slowing down his pursuers, and kept running with no intention of explaining himself. Darting past the isolation ward, an idea struck Yemen. He knew that he had to go through with this. He slipped inside, preparing to carry out a dark plan. Yemen approached the bed where his turned comrade Chen Chong lay. The boy's transformation into a zombie was nearly finished. Yemen approached his restrained friend, only to find the monster had already snapped one of his leather straps. It was obvious this monster was incredibly powerful and would not stay tied down for long. Yemen knew everything was working out perfectly, and this would actually save him time. Meanwhile, his pursuers cleared the barricade and rushed down the hallway to catch Yemen, when suddenly they saw a dark figure waiting at the far end. Jung immediately realized what happened. Their former friend and traitor Yemen had Yemen let Chong out of quarantine. Honestly, who could have predicted this betrayal? They had to put Chong down, but there was one massive problem. Every single weapon was locked up tight inside the base armory. Shenwell told everyone to stay calm and remember what Xiao-Yun taught them. The main rule, don't get bit. Kai Jiang quietly crept up on Chong. Moving like a ghost, he made sure not to make a sound. Then Kai Jiang lunged forward, locking his former comrade in a tight grip. He pinned his head as Shan Shan and the glasses guy rushed in. They grabbed his arms and held on, completely neutralizing the zombie threat. Old Man S quickly ordered them to drag him into the infirmary. They shoved him inside and locked the door. Terrifying, but they did it. Still, Shenwell worried. They had already wasted far too much precious time. There was no doubt that the traitor Yemen had already reached the armory. Right on cue, here comes our favorite traitor, stepping out from the corner. He was absolutely furious, unable to locate where Xiao-Yun hid the stockpile. The shelves were completely bare, save for one highly unusual-looking handgun. Even so, Yemen figured this single pistol was enough to finish them off. He would find the rest of the guns later. Kai Jiang tried pleading with his old friend, reminding him that Xiao-Yun had saved their lives. Yemen just laughed it off, calling their savior a total arrogant prick. Saving them once didn't mean they had to be his obedient slaves forever. Old Man S shook his head. Some people are just born completely ungrateful. Hopeless, you can't teach respect to someone who has none. Yemen didn't care about lectures. He pointed the gun and barked an order. He wanted them to shut up and head straight to the bedroom. And wait, is that a key glinting in his hand? This can't be good. Meanwhile, back in the city, Xiao-Yun told his new companions he had to go. He needed to reach Shengzhu's apartment immediately, even if he went solo. Captain Li warned him of the extreme danger and urged him to be careful. The officer told the young man to regroup with them once his search ended. He warned that a group of survivors had settled in Building 8, but the main entrance was a death trap. Xiao-Yun thanked Captain Lei, keeping his system abilities hidden. The boy's father wanted to join the young man to repay him, but Captain Lei immediately refused, knowing the horde would easily tear them apart out there. That warning was all they could offer. Meanwhile, near Shengzhu's place, zombies were absolutely everywhere. Total blackout, no signal, completely cut off. The local bandits had no way of checking if their runner succeeded. One thug grumbled that waiting was pointless, growing more restless by the minute. They desperately needed to blow off steam before losing their minds. They assumed Shengzhu was already dead after heading out completely solo. In a world this brutal, surviving all by yourself was practically impossible. The scum decided it was time to torment the captive woman once more. They figured the horde would kill them eventually, so why care? The leader agreed with their sick logic and gave his permission. He warned them to play nice and keep her alive, but right then, the man glanced outside. He noticed that all the zombies prowling in the yard were suddenly chopped to pieces. He slowly pulled open the heavy wooden door and peered out into the darkness. Peeking into the quiet stairwell, he prayed that rescue teams had finally arrived. Although he saw no movement, a cold silence hung heavy in the air. A quiet whistle sliced the air right beside the leader, and a thin red line appeared. In a flash, the gang leader's severed head tumbled straight to the cold floor. Crimson blood sprayed everywhere, completely drenching the narrow hallway in a horrific mess. Inside the room, the bandits had absolutely no idea their boss was already dead. They burst into the kid's bedroom, ready to torment the defenseless mother. Snatching the terrified little boy, they brutally ripped him from his mother's arms. Ignoring her desperate screams, they tossed the kid across the room like a rag doll. He crashed hard against the brick wall, dazed and unable to stop their cruel game. The thugs dragged him out and tossed him into the messy living room. They figured their leader was out there waiting, so the kid had nowhere to run. The boy sobbed, shouting threats that he would make them pay. Suddenly, a heavy thud caught his attention from just outside the doorway. It was the headless corpse of the gang leader collapsing to the ground. Shaking with fear, the boy stared at a strange, glowing gaze in the shadows. Two menacing eyes watched him from the dark hall. Who was the real monster here? Step by step, Xiao-Yun emerged from the darkness and looked at the boy. He calmly asked if the child's father was Jing Shangja. Back inside, the thugs kept tormenting the mother, hoping she would fight back. She wept silently, knowing there was no escape, but holding in her screams. Suddenly, the bedroom door flew off its hinges with a deafening crash. One of the bandits turned around to see who dared interrupt them. He got his answer instantly, in the most brutal way possible. The other thugs barked orders, but their partner just stood frozen in place. A second later, his lifeless body collapsed, and his head rolled away. The remaining thugs froze in sheer shock, completely blind to the threat. Before they could even blink, another blade sliced through the air. The next thug was pinned to the floor and instantly decapitated. The survivors forgot about the woman, staring in terror at this lethal stranger. Meanwhile, things were getting incredibly tense over at the survivor shelter. A man pointed his rifle, warning everyone to get into the bedrooms immediately. He knew he had to spill some blood to make these people respect him. Fear was the only way to keep his absolute authority over this group. He decided to start with Xingbo, an old man who constantly irritated him. But right then, a bizarre, scraping noise echoed from the medical wing. The door swung open to reveal the undead corpse of their friend, Chang. Iman was stunned. How could a mindless zombie unlock a door? It made zero sense, yet their Chang was, shuffling directly toward them. Iman knew he had to act fast. He could not let this monster live. He raised his gun and fired at his former friend, but nothing happened. His rifle jammed, giving the ravenous zombie the perfect opening to sink its teeth into a man. Their classmate Chang is now a zombie. He lunged and bit a chunk out of a man. The Walking Dead then grabbed his bleeding victim by the collar and started dragging him. He pulled him silently toward the infirmary. Everyone was in absolute shock. No one could believe their eyes. It was one thing that a zombie could open doors. But Chang actually took Iman's body and dragged him all the way back inside. And honestly, what this creature did next defied all zombie logic. Chang tossed something right toward his terrified classmates, a metal key that landed with a sharp clang. He was letting them know that he was locking himself in so he could never escape. No words were needed. His shocked classmates stood there in complete silence. They just watched with wide-open mouths, too terrified to investigate. Meanwhile, inside Jiang Shengzhai's apartment, things were totally different. Two surviving gangsters had been disarmed and tied up securely. A sobbing mother clutched her young boy tightly. Xiao-Yun stepped forward and called out to the kid. She tried to shield her son, but the brave little kid gently calmed her down, insisting that everything was fine and that this strange uncle would not hurt them. Then Xiao-Yan handed the boy a sharp knife, ordering him to execute the thugs. The tied-up villains immediately began screaming and begging for mercy as the mother protested. She cried out that he was just a kid, but Xiao-Yan completely disagreed with her. He told the boy that he was now the only man left to protect his mother. He needed to be strong and end the monsters who had dared to hurt her. He did not hesitate. Within a matter of seconds, it was completely over. The lifeless bodies of the two thugs now lay in growing pools of blood. The kid realized his father was gone, which was why he had to step up. But he was still just a child, a kid who loved his parents. He threw himself into his mother's arms, sobbing uncontrollably over his dead father. But then the mother gently pushed her son back and begged Xiao-Yan for help. She wanted him to take the boy and keep him safe, offering absolutely anything in return. Xiao-Yan refused. He had promised Jiang Shengzhai to keep his family safe. They would leave together. First, Xiao-Yan grabbed an automatic rifle, handed the mother a sword, gave the boy a knife, and they finally set out. As they walked, the kid stared at the dead zombies with pure awe. He was absolutely thrilled to learn that their powerful savior was Xiao-Yan. The group navigated the ruins, moving slowly and quietly through the abandoned streets. Suddenly, Xiao-Yan stopped. He raised his hand and signaled for everyone to freeze. He quietly asked the mother if she knew the way to the 8th building. Over in Chongqing Garden, where his surviving friends were currently hiding. He had caught wind of a nasty rumor. A ruthless gang was planning an attack. But these guys had no idea that a real monster slayer was coming. They were already laughing, planning how to split the loot and exploit the people. Inside that block, a terrified group of civilians was being led by Captain Li. They all knew a brutal assault from the local gang was coming fast. Outside, the thugs screamed at the barricaded doors, demanding they hand over the women. In exchange, they promised to spare the men, but Captain Li knew better than that. One terrified woman suggested they just surrender, hoping to beg the bandits for mercy. But a younger girl strongly disagreed. She refused to trust those monsters. She had absolutely no intention of becoming their plaything. Meanwhile, Captain Li reassured everyone they would manage. He promised they would defend this narrow passage. The villains would never enter from the other side. Down on the street, the bandits felt completely invincible. They knew that only one man inside the house actually carried a gun. One thug suggested that if the hostages refused to cooperate, they should simply cut off their water supply. Let us see how long they last before begging. Xiao-Yun and his allies crept silently closer to the building to watch. Xiao-Yun whispered to the young boy that these thugs were just like the bullies who tormented him and his mother, readying his weapon. The young man prepared to fire. Inside, Captain Lee ordered the scared civilians to hide their positions and stay extremely quiet while he himself slipped downstairs. He had to inspect the chaos brewing on the street. Approaching the window, he counted roughly a dozen gangsters hovering around the entrance. Honestly, anyone would panic, but before fear could take hold, Captain Lee caught the sudden, violent sound of gunfire echoing from the street below. Totally blind to the trap, the gangsters were shot cleanly through the head one by one. Chaos erupted. Who was attacking them? They knew it was neither zombies nor the captives. Trapped inside the building, Captain Lee immediately peeked through the window. Again, he spotted him. It was that same confident young man, charging forward while firing an automatic weapon with absolute precision. Gangsters dropped one after another, dropping dead instantly. The remaining thugs panicked so heavily that they could not aim or shoot back. One desperate bandit lunged out, taking careful aim at Xiao-Yun. He was completely sure his bullets would hit the target, but Xiao-Yun shot first, hitting him. Soon, the bandits ran completely out of ammo and resorted to hand-to-hand combat. The result was identical. After wiping out the thugs in the courtyard, the young fighter breached the front entrance, where more gangsters lay in ambush. 3 of them rushed him, only to be sent straight to hell. Ding! A system notification flashed before Xiao-Yun, presenting a brand new quest to recruit the remaining survivors from the Zhongzhang Garden. He turned and asked Captain Lee about these armed thugs targeting the helpless civilians. It turned out they belonged to the Bekashin villas gang in the southern district. The newcomers, wearing yellow shirts, helmets, and protective goggles, confirmed they had barely escaped from that exact southern region. Naturally, they knew these gangsters well, warning of an armed squad holding down the Bekashin villas. Xiao-Yun instantly recalled his past life. Li Shuang and Kui Jing used to live there. Was it the same gang? The men in yellow explained that this was not the only settlement down south. There used to be others, but they stood zero chance against the armed faction. Soon, all the civilians were captured. The men added that this brutal gang acted like animals, killing innocents and taking only beautiful women and children. Xiao-Yun realized these were the exact targets he wanted to find. Fortune favors the bold, after all. He silently planned his next move. Xiao-Yun stood over the dead bandits, already calculating his next move. He turned and ordered Captain Lee to search the dead, strip them completely. Weapons, ammo, magazines, anything useful. He also handed the captain his rifle. Xiao-Yun had absolutely no plan of letting the Bekashin gang off the hook after this. The civilians just needed to survive. A few days, that is it. Then Xiao-Yun would return, but a nearby cyclist immediately scoffed. It is suicide, the man warned. They have too many soldiers. Captain Lee also stepped in, trying to reason with the kid. He argued that taking on the gang was crazy and they should find another hiding spot. They could slip away just a few kilometers and stay hidden. But Xiao-Yun just shook his head. This was deeply personal. He told the captain he had an old score to settle. He promised to bring back a truck to transport everyone safely. He had a fortress near the old tea plantation that needed survivors. Xiao-Yun said his farewells to Captain Lee and the rest. He quickly departed the area, taking the Shenja family with him. A rotting zombie head sat impaled on a nearby fence as a grim warning. Nearby, a guard stood watch, rifle in hand. More dead walkers hung right above the main gate. This was the Bekashin villa, and trust me, it looked like pure hell. Inside the compound, 4 gang members gathered around a table. A cold-looking man in glasses sat at the head, the boss. He was furious, the supplies were still missing. Liu Shang quickly assured Mr. when that men were already there. They would be back soon, but another gangster spoke up. He pointed out that wealthy citizens used to live there. That meant plenty of high-value luxury goods were up for grabs. They needed more than food. Liu Shang smirked at the idea. He agreed with Kai and immediately ordered his thugs to move. Capture every survivor, but Wen was furious. Nothing was done right. He felt nothing was done right. Liu Shang trembled nervously. Terrified of his boss, he stammered out excuses and promises. He swore he would handle it perfectly this time around. Stepping outside, Liu Shang gasped. The stress was unreal. Dealing with Wen was like playing with fire. Then, a subordinate approached. He delivered some terrible news about the squad sent out earlier. Every single one of their men was dead, which made no sense. How could ordinary civilians wipe out an entire team of armed killers? Fearing the worst, Liu Shang ordered every capable fighter to mobilize. They could not afford another failure if they wanted to survive. Meanwhile, Xiao-Yun finally pulled up to his secure hideout. Complete relief, Shan Shan heard the car engine outside. Shan Shan recognized the engine and knew Xiao-Yun was back. Her grandfather followed close behind to welcome their savior home. Who had returned completely safe and sound, the children immediately ran to their protector to share how their night had gone, but Xiao-Yun did not seem very surprised. Shanhan realized right then that the boy had known from the very beginning that things would turn out exactly this way. Xiao-Yun asked Zhang Zai to take his mother and son to their room to help them settle in, before suggesting that everyone meet up near the infirmary. Shengbo was curious if Xiao-Yun actually knew that a man was plotting something. The young man admitted he was not actually certain that a man would be the one to betray them, but he knew one thing for sure. Betrayal was absolutely coming. In his previous life, there was always a traitor hiding among Zhang Zai's friends. All they had to do was wait for him to reveal himself. Xiao-Yun pointed out the heavy machine gun, noting that it was loaded with harmless rubber bullets. In any case, the traitor could not do any real damage to the shelter's residents. Now, one mystery remained. How on earth was the zombie named Chang so different? Xiao-Yun explained that it was pretty simple. Chang was not just a mindless corpse, but an incredibly rare mutant. A few days back, Xiao-Yun had asked the zombie a question, telling him to blink 3 times if he understood. The creature actually blinked, and just like that, contact was made. Xiao-Yun knew that people infected with this alien virus had a tiny chance of turning into rare, advanced mutants with high intelligence and massive potential compared to regular zombies. Some could even retain direct fragments of memories from their past lives. Chang was lucky enough to be one of those special few. The group walked into the infirmary and saw Chang had pinned down a man who was already transforming into a mindless zombie. Chang casually waved to his friends, who stood frozen in absolute shock at the sight. Xiao-Yun ordered the mutant not to torture the miserable, half-turned traitor, but to just finish him off quickly. Chang silently dragged a man by the scruff of his neck, acting with total confidence as if he were still a normal human. Zhang Zai, completely stunned like everyone else, turned to his zombie buddy Chang and asked if he actually remembered him. Instantly, the mutant lunged forward, trying to swipe right between Zhang Zai's legs. The guy managed to jump back just in time, realizing it was just their classic, stupid inside joke. Even as a zombie, Chang apparently still loved messing around. He really remembered his best friend, which was an absolute miracle. With that settled, Xiao-Yun went to check his system achievements. He had secured a massive heap of bonus points for crafting a mutant companion. The system store offered all sorts of survival gear he could purchase with his new wealth. He spent his points on heavy tactical gear for high-intensity combat. In the end, the guy walked away with incredibly powerful firearms, and that was only the first tier of rewards. He also unlocked an experimental zombie infection blocker to cure victims before their transformation finished. His very next system mission was to rescue the surviving civilians holed up in Zhongshan Garden. He decided to head out tomorrow, which would finally unlock the second tier. The following morning began with some serious shooting practice. Every single resident in the shelter was handed a firearm and forced to sharpen their skills. They would face daily target practice from here on out. Surprisingly, Grandpa Shungbo was by far the best shooter. Xiao-Yun asked him to prepare several rooms, hoping to house a new group of survivors arriving today. That meant heading out. Xiao-Yun asked Changgu to tag along to the city to collect the survivors. To keep everyone safe, the mutant wore a locked mask designed to protect his loved ones. With that heavy restriction in place, Xiao-Yun and Changgu finally drove off in their car. But their drive was cut short when they spotted a bus packed with hostile bandits. They wiped out the bandits quickly. Now that empty bus looked like perfect transport. But wait, there was a catch. A zombie was still sitting right behind the wheel. Changgu crushed the monster instantly. Seeing the threat cleared, Xiao-Yun handed him the key. It was the key to his mask, allowing the mutant to finally breathe freely again. Xiao-Yun never feared his companion, letting him relax without the mask whenever they were alone. But around other humans, the mask had to go right back on to avoid starting a panic. To prevent any panic, elsewhere, his lieutenants, they stood ready for orders, worried that their previous scouts had not returned yet. The delay was driving their leader, Xu Xiang, absolutely insane with rage. He could not believe his trained men were struggling against a few helpless civilians. To him, these targets were weaklings who barely knew how to hold a gun. Fuming, the bandits piled into a heavy truck to hunt down their missing crew. At that very moment, the stolen bus was tearing through the city streets. It smashed through stray zombies and shoved wrecked cars out of the path. Inside a nearby building, Captain Lee and his survivors were quietly eating some snacks. The distant rumble of an engine caught their ears, sparking a sudden hope. The youngest of the group immediately figured that Xiao-Yun had returned to save them. But Captain Lee, ever the skeptic, hushed the boy to keep them safe. They had to be sure he was right. A truck packed with heavily armed bandits rolled straight into the courtyard below. Xu Xiang quickly deployed his men, giving the brutal order to kill everyone. Li knew their luck had run out. Xiao-Yun was still nowhere in sight. These bandits were angry, heavily armed, and clearly ready for a bloody battle. But watch out, these brainless thugs had clearly learned absolutely nothing. They now had guns, looted from the previous squad of bandits they defeated. Still, Captain Lee warned them not to get overconfident just yet. This new wave of enemies was larger, and every single one was packing heat. Their only option now was to strictly stick to the plan. Lee slipped up to the roof, keeping a close eye on the hostile threat. Down below, Xu Xiang prepared his ruthless assault with zero hesitation. He had no interest in negotiating, signaling his men to surround the entrance. They opened fire immediately, spraying the walls with a barrage of bullets. Inside, a terrified survivor screamed for everyone to stay down. Get down! Within seconds, the entire place was being torn apart. Every single window shattered into pieces under the relentless automatic fire. Xu Xiang demanded headshots only, wanting this cleared as quickly as possible. He even grabbed a loudspeaker, preparing to gloat to the trapped survivors. But before he could utter a single word, his lieutenant was sniped right in the head. Panic set in. They had no idea where the shots came from. Then another shot rang out, taking down a second thug. The gangsters scattered for cover while Captain Lee perched on the roof with his trusty rifle, scanned the entire area for his next target. Liu Chang was absolutely furious. His intel had only reported a single pistol, but the hostages suddenly had an automatic weapon, and he had no idea where. They got it, his terrified subordinate, drenched in cold sweat. Frantically asked what their next move was. Upon hearing that they were going to retreat, the panicked thug bolted out alone, trying to escape the deadly courtyard where so many of his allies had died. A sniper bullet quickly cut him down, sending him to join his dead friends. Xiao-Yun was completely terrified and unable to think. He ordered the remaining men to fall back. They scrambled for the getaway car while Xiao-Yun watched the sniper picking off his crew, desperately waiting for Captain Lee to run out of ammo or get distracted by others. Xiao-Yun scrambled to take cover inside the car. His gamble paid off, allowing him and two of his thugs to scramble inside and speed away before Captain Lee could target them. Meanwhile, the rescue bus continued racing through the dangerous city streets as fast as possible, constantly dodging debris. Near the spot where the survivors waited, a dark car crossed their path, tearing past them at a terrifying speed. Naturally, this caught Xiao-Yun's eye, but he had a critical rescue mission to focus on, so he did not waste any time. Soon, the bus reached its destination, and Xiao-Yun realized his friend's heavy machine gun had been incredibly useful. That speeding car they just passed must have belonged to the escaping gangsters. The mutant Changgu stared at the dead thugs, drool dripping from his jaws. Xiao-Yun noticed his hunger and gave him permission to feed, as it was better than leaving the meat for other zombies. The mutant did not need to be told twice and immediately began tearing into the corpses. Xiao-Yun left his undead ally behind, telling him to meet up at the 8th house after his feast. Just then, the loud rumble of an approaching engine caught his attention. The waiting survivors spotted Xiao-Yun entering the courtyard. They flooded out onto the balconies, cheering and shouting with pure joy at their rescue. They showered him with gratitude, but Captain Lee pointed to his rifle, reminding everyone that his past training as an army sniper finally paid off. Suddenly, a low, guttural growl shattered the happy moment, making everyone freeze as they looked behind Xiao-Yun. A horrifying zombie was shuffling toward them, its face and clothes drenched in fresh blood. The survivors raised their weapons to fire, but Xiao-Yun quickly interceded, urging them to lower their guns because this monster was on their side. He even pointed out some nearby zombie corpses, offering them to his hungry companion. Captain Lee could only watch in absolute and stunned silence. This kid had not only brought a flesh-eater with him, but he was actively talking to it. Xiao-Yun explained that this was a highly unique situation, promising to tell them the full story once they got moving. For now, they had to board the bus immediately. The rescued crowd piled on. Everyone on the bus stared in sheer terror at the mutant zombie, who had just finished eating. After finishing his meal, the creature put on a protective mask, leaving the kid completely stunned. It was shocking to see a zombie muzzle itself, but Xiao-Yun quickly warned the boy. She told him never to say that word around the monster, or he would get slapped. Ignoring everyone, Changgu boarded the bus like any normal passenger. He walked right up to Xiao-Yun, handing over the key to his metal mask. The mutant even repeated the word "K" several times, which absolutely amazed the young leader. Xiao-Yun realized that Changgu was rapidly evolving after consuming those 6 fresh human corpses. Still, they had to return to the shelter quickly to claim points for rescuing these civilians. This secured his spot as the absolute strongest in the fortress. Meanwhile, Liu Shang stood trembling before his boss Kai, who was screaming at his stupidity. He screamed at him for failing such a simple task. Liu Shang whined that it was not his fault because the targets had automatic rifles. They had wiped out his entire squad, but Liwen scoffed, calling the story absolute rubbish. How could a low-level police officer get his hands on that kind of military firepower? Liu Shang desperately begged them to go and check the site if they did not believe him. Annoyed by the pathetic whining, Kai literally kicked him out of the main office. Kai admitted to his crew that this useless fool had been testing his patience for way too long. Since Liu Shang had caused such heavy losses, it was finally time to permanently get rid of him. Another gangster joked that Kai simply wanted an excuse to steal the beautiful girlfriend. Kai just offered a wicked smile, though a greedy, hungry look flashed in his eyes. He suggested that the three of them could simply share the girl among themselves like a prize. Since they were brothers, treating her like a piece of property seemed perfectly fine to them. Liwen suggested waiting for the perfect moment before they decided to split the sweet reward. Talk about getting stabbed in the back, and Liu Shang heard every single word outside. His eyes burned with pure, dark hatred as his fists clenched tightly in the hallway. He wanted to smash those three arrogant faces into the dirt. Liu Shang rushed back home, where his beautiful girlfriend Kui was waiting for him. He frantically ordered her to pack everything. They had to escape immediately. The fortress was no longer safe, and they needed to stay one step ahead of Kai. He quickly called his loyal assistant, barking out some urgent late-night instructions. He wanted every ally and all valuable supplies secured from the villa right away. They had to leave by midnight while Kui listened closely. Meanwhile, the rescue bus carrying the newly freed civilians finally arrived at the secure refuge. The survivors stepped out, looking around in complete awe at their massive new home. To the young boy, this place looked like an absolute fortress against the apocalypse. At that moment, Xiao-Yun received system confirmation that his rescue mission was officially complete. He even scored a massive bonus, flooding his personal account with valuable shop points. Xiao-Yun immediately turned to his mutant partner and told him they had a new destination. Tomorrow night they would head south, get ready, because things are about to get wild. He kept his plans a secret, no details for anyone else. He simply had some unfinished business to settle with the gang over at the Baikashan villas. Once he was finally alone, he purchased a rare high-tech supply crate. This was his very first level 2 chest, and Xiao-Yun did not hesitate to open it. He silently hoped the rare loot inside would not disappoint him. The young man downed a physical enhancement potion, unleashing a surge of raw energy. This massive upgrade was something he immediately put to the test. The physical breakthrough was so intense, brilliant flashes of light illuminated the entire room. Checking his system stats, Xiao-Yun discovered he was now 6 times stronger than before. A wave of absolute confidence washed over him, but right then, a distraction appeared. Unaware of any danger, a clueless mosquito drifted into the room. It had zero interest in Xiao-Yun, but his reflexes were now lightning fast. He effortlessly snatched the tiny insect midair, holding it gently by a single leg. Nothing personal, just a quick test of his newfound speed. By the next morning, Xiao-Yun and his mutant companion Chong prepared to head out for the Bushan area. Time to move. Before leaving, Xiao-Yun asked Captain Lei to keep a close eye on shelter security. He also wanted him to oversee combat training for all the survivors. Since the captain was their sharpest shooter, he gladly agreed to help them prepare. The captain promised to turn every single civilian into a dead-eye sniper. With that settled, Xiao-Yun and Chong set off, while elsewhere, midnight approached. Inside his luxury villa, Liu Xiang was frantically packing up his remaining treasures. His plan was to flee the district with his loyal henchmen. Suddenly, blinding headlights washed over him, causing him to freeze in terror. Shielding his eyes, he couldn't make out who had just arrived. Inside the vehicle was Liu Xiang's own girlfriend, Shui Jing, along with some thugs. The notorious gang boss Dong Shu stepped out, holding a weapon as he approached. Staring down the villa owner, the gang boss asked where he was heading. Recognizing his powerful boss, Liu Xiang instantly began desperately making excuses. In his desperation, he claimed he was only using the night to attack. They were supposed to wipe out their mutual enemies together. Dong Shu coldly ordered his men to drag a corpse from the trunk. It was Liu Xiang's former assistant. The traitor stared in absolute horror. Stammering in panic, he swore he had never seen this person. Instead, he claimed it was probably a setup to frame him. Tired of the lies, Dong Shu and his men suddenly opened fire. Realizing there was absolutely nowhere left to run, the coward braced for impact. But the lethal shots suddenly stopped, leaving him shaking and drenched in cold sweat. Drenched in sweat, he stood frozen, wondering why he was still breathing. Dong Shu gestured toward the car, telling him to look inside before lying again. Sitting right there in the passenger seat was a face he knew too well. It was his own woman, Shui Jing, and she had already spilled all his secrets. There was absolutely no way out of this. His betrayal was fully exposed. Liu Xiang glared at her with pure, murderous rage, wanting to tear her apart. But the boss had heard enough of the traitor's pathetic screaming. With a simple nod, Dong Shu ordered his executioners to finish him off. The thugs carried out the task with brutal, creative enthusiasm. Before long, Liu Xiang was left hanging from his own front gate. This grisly sight was exactly what Xiao-Yun found when he arrived in the south. Looks like someone else beat him to the punch. The group quietly exited their vehicle. They stopped a short distance from the villa district to avoid attracting local attention. Bandits might hear the engine, so they slipped quietly through the dark streets. Slipping through the tight city streets, they finally reached Liu Xiang's villa, finding him inside. From now on, he would hang like a grim warning on his own gate. It was a real disappointment. Xiao-Yun could not handle him personally. By the time they crossed paths, the mob boss was already turning into a zombie. Xiao-Yun sliced the rope, letting his helpless opponent faceplant hard onto the cold ground. He slammed onto the hard asphalt, defenseless, unable to even think. Zombies do not feel pain, but Xiao-Yun dragged him by the hair anyway. He knew his strength. This walking dead man could not hurt him. Xiao-Yun had promised to avenge Shush's death. Meanwhile, Qing lay bruised on a bed. Covered in nasty cuts, she could not understand why they were treating her like this. She had exposed Liu Xiang's betrayal to help the boss. Kai was just pulling his clothes on when an odd noise echoed from outside. He rushed over to the window, and what he saw completely froze him in place. Every single guard around the quiet perimeter of the villa lay dead. Their bloody bodies were left piled up in the quiet courtyard. Down on the dark street, Xiao-Yun quietly stared up at the brightly lit windows. The next victim was chosen. There was no time to waste. In an instant, the young man leaped straight onto the second-story window. He flung it open and pressed a razor-sharp knife against Kai's throat. 0 words were exchanged. The thug's throat was slit in a flash. He only managed to croak. Leiwen was ended the exact same way. He turned his cold gaze toward his terrified former fiancée. She stammered in fear, desperately trying to guess his plans for her. Xiao-Yun already knew exactly what kind of dirty work this company was pulling. And trust me, his idea of a romantic reunion was downright terrifying. He kicked the door open, and zombie Liu Xiang stumbled in to greet his beloved. Qing frantically tried to talk to him, but he immediately sank his teeth in. He sank his teeth deep, tearing her to pieces in seconds. Xiao-Yun and his partner left the couple and walked away, while zombie Liu Xiang feasted on the bodies of the freshly killed mobsters. Xiao-Yun kept a sharp lookout, listening closely to the quiet night air. His sharp hearing caught the muffled sound of human voices. Civilians kidnapped by the bandits were locked behind closed doors. Right at that moment, one of the bandits grabbed a little girl. He showed her to the fat cook, joking about how tender her meat would be. But the chef was pretty picky, complaining that the girl was far too skinny. His cold gaze immediately shifted to a chubby little boy sitting with his mother. Both huddled together, absolutely terrified. The desperate mother lunged at the cook to shield her boy, but got thrown down. She sobbed on the floor, frantically begging the other captives to save her child. But the other captives just looked away in shame, completely avoiding her eyes. Deep down, they were just incredibly relieved it was not their turn to die. Suddenly, strange noises from outside caught everyone's attention. Both the hostages and the bandits, the armed villains, quickly drew their weapons and prepared to face the unknown enemy, who sounded like they had a Shotgun, one bandit crept toward the door to look through the peephole and see who was making such a ruckus in their villa, but he did not have time to see anything before a zombie's hand burst through the door and grabbed him by the throat. The terrified bandits barely had time to realize it was the hand of a walking corpse. The undead had breached their hideout, and now everyone was in deep trouble. In a panic, they opened fire on the door where their friend had just been dragged away. But in the next instant, the wooden boards covering the windows were shattered as zombies came leaping in from the streets. In the blink of an eye, one of them lunged into the center of the room, grabbing the fat cook by the head. Before he could even swing his cleaver, with one swift, brutal movement, the cook's head was twisted like a bottle cap and ripped completely off. A truly brutal end. The other thugs met the same fate before they could fire. The hostages stared in shock at this bizarre zombie who only targeted the villains. Without touching a single hostage, just then an unfamiliar guy stepped inside and asked the zombie if that mask was bothering him. The creature replied. The mask was actually quite comfortable and made him look way cooler. The terrified hostages finally stopped trembling. It was clear the zombie would not harm them. At that moment, Xiao-Yun stepped forward to address the crowd and urged them to stay calm, promising that everything was under control. And this zombie was friendly. Nearby, a little girl stood shivering, her eyes brimming with tears. She had no idea she was facing a super monster that could end a life instantly, but her story caught Xiao-Yun's attention, prompting him to ask if she had seen other beasts. She nodded, explaining she had spotted a massive mutant at the Eastern jewelry market. Xiao-Yun was stunned. He did not expect mutations to accelerate this quickly. He thought it would take months. Worse, that jewelry market was dangerously close to the quiet tea town where his sanctuary lay. The tactical intelligence of these rare mutants was far superior to common zombies, though their unstable minds made them extremely volatile. Chen Chong watched in pure horror, realizing he might turn into one of those mindless monsters soon. He absolutely refused that fate. Xiao-Yun quickly stepped in, promising he would never let that happen. After all, Chen Chong was incredibly lucky. He then turned to the survivors and asked if there were any other captives hidden around the villa. They revealed that dozens were locked in the basement and sales office. Xiao-Yun, alongside his zombie ally and the survivors, immediately went to search for them. Brace yourselves. What they found downstairs was completely horrific. The basement was littered with cold bodies. These bandits slaughtered innocent survivors every single day, completely wiping out every other sanctuary in the southern district. One male hostage whispered that the thugs constantly hauled away fresh meat, meaning they slaughtered humans to feed something massive. Xiao-Yun realized that such vast amounts of meat were meant to sustain a colossal horde. They never touched the food. It was clear those bandits were feeding the zombies. So Xiao-Yun cornered one of the captives, demanding to know where the sales office was. The trembling man squealed that it was only about a kilometer away, near the South Gate. That was their main holding pen, but the ones destined for slaughter ended up here. It was a sick, literal slaughterhouse, just absolute, pure nightmare material. Right then, Xiao-Yun received a sudden system notification about his next major quest. He had to scale up his survivor community and bring in as many people as possible. So Xiao-Yun and his monstrous partner, Shang, immediately set off to search the sales office. Inside, the guards suddenly heard heavy gunshots echoing from all the way near the north gate. They assumed their buddies were just using the helpless captives for target practice. The bandits had absolutely no clue that the beastly Shang was already looming right behind them. Meanwhile, locked away in a back office, a group of young girls huddled together in fear. They had been stripped down to their underwear, and now they heard a muffled noise. Exhausted and terrified, they desperately prayed they would not face the bandits again. Suddenly, the heavy metal door handle slowly began to turn, and their hearts stopped completely cold. You can practically feel their dread as one girl desperately whispers for them to stay out. But the door swung wide open, revealing a striking, blue-eyed stranger standing there. It was Xiao-Yun, looking incredibly calm. With a warm smile, he told them to follow him. They quickly gathered every single captive who had been locked away in the building. With everyone rescued, the desperate crowd followed Xiao-Yun closely, ready to go anywhere. They just wanted to escape the horror. Xiao-Yun gave them a very stern warning. He was taking them to a secure shelter, but they had to earn their keep by working. Nobody complained. After the hell they had survived, they were willing to do any chore. So they eagerly boarded the massive rescue bus, completely ready to leave this nightmare behind forever. The bus started up and drove toward the shelter. The road was surprisingly clear. Before they even realized it, the heavy bus came to a halt right outside the main gates. They stepped off, breathing deep sighs of relief. High on the watchtower, Shan Shan and Zaijiang spotted Xiao-Yun returning, but they quickly noticed something pretty strange about his approach. Instead of driving inside the safe zone, he stopped the crowd right outside the heavy fence. Xiao-Yun pointed toward the towering fortress, announcing that this would be their sanctuary. But there was one catch: he could not let them step inside. They easily understood his caution in this brutal world, but questions immediately began to rise. Where would they live? Xiao-Yun pointed over to a row of temporary trailers. They would set up their new lives in these houses, safely near the fortress. Of course, it was not nearly as secure as being inside, but it easily beat the ruined city. The survivors bowed in deep gratitude. By the very next morning, everything changed. A heavy truck slowly rolled up to the luxury villas, sitting on the town's south side. They honked, but nobody came out, and honestly, the eerie silence is pretty chilling. Where did the local gangsters go? She and her partner moved in to investigate. They silently slipped inside the dark building, clearing floor after floor, but instead of business partners, she found only empty, dusty rooms and hungry walking dead waiting in the shadows. The ravenous zombies lunged instantly, desperate for the taste of living flesh. But this stunning, long-legged brunette was absolutely far from being a defenseless, easy victim. She was insanely strong, casually tearing through the walkers with one hand. Her reflexes were blindingly fast, dropping every single monster without showing a trace of fear. Within seconds, the zombies lay dead, and she proudly brandished her gleaming blade. Her assistant anxiously asked where they would find meat now that the area was cleared. It was clear they had no choice but to hunt for food themselves. But first, they had to uncover the daring intruder's identity. Once she identified the culprit, her only goal was to track them down and end them. The assistant reported that no other survivors remained after thoroughly checking the area. Fortunately, they still had a small reserve of prepared meat that they had kept in advance. Rai ordered them to bring a truck and get everything loaded up immediately. While they packed the vehicle, Rai carefully analyzed their bizarre situation to figure out their next move. She wanted to know who dared cross her, then spotted tire tracks on the asphalt. Judging by the width of the tracks, this was no ordinary car, making things far more interesting. Who on earth would be bold enough to pull off this stunt? Meanwhile, Xiao-Yun started his morning by carefully checking the community's primary health and status indicators. His primary mission was straightforward: grow the community as fast as possible. With safety secured, the camp's survivors went about their usual early activities. For once, they went about their morning routines without the constant, paralyzing fear of monsters. Then Xiao-Yun remembered the rare mutant a girl had mentioned to him earlier. He needed crucial answers from her before the memory of that creature faded away completely. As he walked, excited survivors eagerly rushed to greet their young savior. Grateful people even knelt down before him, a heartfelt display that deeply touched his heart. Appreciating their warm response, he turned to the little girl to ask his questions. He asked where she saw the super monster, and her mother quickly answered. The woman explained that they encountered it at the horn store inside the jewelry market. Their search party went inside but ran right into the beast. Many were killed, forcing the mother and daughter to flee and find another group. Sadly, those people turned out to be worse than animals, making their rescue a nightmare. Hearing this horror story, Xiao-Yun immediately started planning a trip to the store. Shanhan worried deeply for his safety, urging him not to go and provoke such a dangerous beast. They already had plenty of safe supplies back at their camp. But Jiang Kai argued that they could not just sit around hoarding resources. It was better to grab them, especially since the store was only a few kilometers away. This meant the unknown monster was a direct threat to their entire community. Realizing Xiao-Yun was dead set on fighting the creature, Shanhan tried her best to stop him. She warned him that the creature killed without any hesitation. But Xiao-Yun remained confident in his skills, knowing exactly what he was doing out there. He told Jiang Kai to bring the mutant Cheng along for the mission. Meanwhile, another desperate group of survivors headed toward the exact same supermarket in search of food. Rumors claimed food was still inside, giving them a small glimmer of hope. Armed with only frying pans and simple wooden sticks, they fully understood the massive risks. The place was likely picked clean, but they chose to hope anyway. After all, they had found useful leftovers in other abandoned grocery shops on previous runs. It made sense, as very few survivors dared to roam the streets. Taking a deep breath, they slowly stepped inside the building. Empty, pitch-black corridors greeted their entry with nothing but a heavy and chilling silence. The shelves were mostly looted, but they hoped some food remained hidden. There was still a decent chance of finding some food here. Everyone huddled closely, trying to figure out if any other survivors were left, but their voices instantly drew nearby zombies who rushed them. Luckily, these survivors were experienced enough to smash lone zombies with sticks and frying pans. Any improvised weapon worked. The group figured most of the zombies had already been lured away by the previous scavengers who had already cleared the place out. Things were actually going pretty well. They pushed deeper into the supermarket, reminding each other to stay alert. Suddenly, a dark shadow slipped silently into one of the aisles. This mutant was genuinely terrifying. It stared at its next victims, waiting for them to step deeper like mice. Walking right into a trap, finally they reached shelves packed with decent supplies. This was an absolute stroke of luck. They had to grab everything and get out of there as fast as possible. The girl spotted something she had not seen in months, an ordinary display bed. Just looking at that soft mattress and clean sheets felt like pure heaven. She wanted to sleep forever. Realizing their luck, they actually considered setting up camp inside the store. Two guys stepped aside for a smoke. Since they had also found fresh cigarettes, it was absolute paradise. But staying here permanently was impossible because this massive supermarket was quite large with multiple doors, making it tough to defend. Plus, having so many supplies would inevitably attract other groups, but one man spotted a two-story building nearby that looked pretty solid. No time to finish speaking, a massive mutant instantly lunged at him for a meal. His partner, legs practically failing from terror, sprinted back to warn his friends while trying to save his own skin. But the terrified young man did not manage to run very far at all. He was impaled on a sharp blade that pierced clean through his chest. This massive beast was incredibly strong, standing almost 1.5 times taller than a normal human. Inside, the girl heard a strange noise, but did not stop to investigate. Sensing the absolute danger, they had to flee, sprinting toward the exit with the massive monster giving chase. It roared that it would not let anyone escape. They ran faster than ever before to survive, but the mutant caught them one by one and killed them instantly. Only the girl was left, running desperately toward the supermarket exit. The glass door was literally a few meters away and seemed like she might actually reach it, but suddenly she stopped dead. Realizing there was absolutely no escape, she turned and saw something totally unexpected. Another zombie mutant blocked her path, but not the giant beast that had been chasing her. this was an unfamiliar mutant wearing a mask and muzzle. He told the girl to stand back and not interfere, then turned to head deeper inside to face the giant beast. She stood frozen, realized she was not going to die when two guys suddenly appeared in front of her. And one of them was very familiar, staring closely at her savior. She recognized him as a client who bought land when she worked in real estate. Right before the apocalypse, Xiao-Yun also recognized her instantly. Beauty, back in the office, she always treated him with respect, ignoring her boss's reaction. Now she was in total shock, babbling random words about some ghost monster haunting the shopping center and how they had to escape immediately. Xiao-Yun gently promised her that everything would be fine. The two mutants faced off. Naturally, Chen Chong was way weaker than his foe, who assumed his rival was trying to steal all the food. Xiao-Yun asked Chen Chong if he needed backup or could handle it alone. The guy wanted to settle this himself. Suddenly, a massive, bizarre mutant took up an offensive stance, leaping back to find the perfect distance. This super beast had never met a worthy challenger and expected an easy, fun match. A real clash of titans. The giant creature built up speed and hurled itself at Chen Chong, but the youth swiftly dodged backward just in time. The monster hoped eating his own kind would speed up his evolution. But before that could even happen, Chen Chong's heavy fist slammed squarely into his face, delivering a strike so incredibly powerful that the beast crashed backward. Wait, the super zombie realized his underestimated rival possessed insane physical strength beneath that weak exterior, and then a heavy kick slammed right into his spine. Chen Chong struck hard, but did zero damage. Worse, the agile mutant scuttled across the ceiling and slipped away, safely out of reach. The creature knew his accumulated power could finally be unleashed, gathering all of his core energy. The enraged mutant charged at Chen Chong, who looked tiny compared to his massive foe. Xiao-Yun watched closely, deeply worried about his ally's fate. He could tell his friend was struggling against this beast's overwhelming might. Xiao-Yun was glad they arrived when they did, otherwise this would have ended badly. Waiting even a moment longer would have spelled disaster. The young man summoned a heavy machine gun from his ring. He joked that he'd stop teasing his ally if the guy could just hold on, then took aim. Chen Chong got the signal and firmly pinned the enemies, arms securing him in place. A loud bang echoed as a bullet struck the mutant directly in the head, absolutely zero effect. The beast survived, growing absolutely furious and ready to tear them apart. Zaijiang stood completely frozen, shocked that a headshot failed to kill it. Unbothered, Xiao-Yun unleashed a continuous barrage of bullets at the charging monster. Soon, the creature was riddled with bullet holes, but it took serious effort. Finally, the massive threat collapsed, absolutely shredded by the gunfire. Xiao-Yun suggested that Chen Chong devour the dead mutant. This would help him absorb the energy and boost his powers fast. Leaving such a massive jackpot behind felt like a total waste, so Xiao-Yun raised his hand to sweep the supermarket clean. He activated his storage ring, vacuuming up every single bit of food. It looked like pure sorcery. Next, they needed to clean up the mess. Leaving corpses around meant risk of infection to prevent any new zombies. Chen Chong kept feasting. A strange car approached. Near the shelter, hiding in the trees, a man raised binoculars too. Rai watched everything happening on the shelter grounds, spotting a girl in the watchtower. Today, Shan Shan was on guard duty to make things better. The bandit noticed a massive crowd of unarmed people just going about their daily lives. Their only defense was that sturdy shelter building. Rai did not understand how these absolute weaklings had managed to defeat Wen and Kai. Most likely, they had lured a massive zombie horde to do their dirty work for them. The bandits were totally thrilled with this massive jackpot. They believed that fate had finally answered their prayers, delivering easy prey and a new home. They decided to hold off on attacking, choosing to return later with more men and heavy weapons. The car spun around and sped off. Meanwhile, Xiao-Yun and her crew were heading back to the base. Jang surprised her by mentioning they had actual mattresses and even warm water for hot. Suddenly, Xiao-Yun's attention was drawn to a vehicle speeding right toward them. He ordered everyone to get their weapons ready, and Jang instantly drew his rifle, racking the bolt. The vehicle passed them without showing any hostility, but Rai stared intensely at the passengers inside the oncoming ride. Suddenly, a brand new quest popped up, which was to repel the upcoming raid. Xiao-Yun realized that stunning woman inside would be his next major opponent. After finally reaching the shelter, he headed straight up to the watchtower, asking Shan Shan if any suspicious strangers had showed up. She mentioned a vehicle passing in the distance without getting too close, assuming it was just Xiao-Yun. Returning from his mission, Xiao-Yun asked them to tell his grandfather to gather the whole community because he had a crucial announcement to make. In the southern outskirts, a massive coal factory sat completely abandoned, remaining out service for years. Suddenly, the radio transmitter picked up a strange signal, directing survivors to a safe zone. The broadcast claimed the coal plant in the south was desperate for workers, inviting anyone left alive to join them. The travelers realized they had reached the correct coordinates and waited around to meet their new employers. Right on cue, a sleek, light-colored sedan pulled up to them. To their immense relief, no zombies were inside, making the team incredibly happy. Two guys and a beautiful woman stepped out, asking if they had arrived. In response to the broadcast, her stunning looks instantly won them over, and they were thrilled to be there. The woman announced they arrived just in time, inviting them all inside the main office to handle the paperwork and start their duties. The group had not felt this optimistic in ages, believing they were finally catching a lucky break. Together, they walked toward the factory doors. In anticipation, the heavy doors slid open as more survivors emerged to greet them warmly. Once inside, the crew relaxed completely, finding a massive room with plenty of space to hide from flesh-eaters. It was the perfect refuge. One of the young men politely asked to excuse himself to use the bathroom. However, the gorgeous lady offered to personally show him where it was, leading him directly inside. She stepped right into the private stall with him without any hesitation, standing incredibly close as he did his business. The guy immediately assumed a closer relationship was developing between them, but it could not step any closer than that. A split second later, Rui's knife pierced clean through the guy's throat. The young man did not even have time to zip his pants before he collapsed in a pool of his own blood at her feet. When she stepped out of the restroom, her subordinate reported everything was ready, and she ordered them to drag the remaining targets inside. Looking down at the cold bodies, Rui calmly commanded them to bring out the second and third. Meanwhile, a massive emergency meeting was underway back at the survivor shelter. Xiao-Yun warned the crowd that an enemy force was gearing up for an attack. Captain Li wanted to know exactly who they were up against, but Xiao-Yun had no answers. Worse, they did not even know when the raid would hit, so Xiao-Yun ordered Zhang and Chong to join him in clearing an unfinished high-rise to the southeast, securing a fallback point for the survivors. Everyone there insisted on helping with the cleanup instead of just sitting around. Xiao-Yun agreed, leaving only the old man and Captain Lai to guard their main fortress. Arming every volunteer, the group set out toward the abandoned structure. It was a massive skeleton of concrete that desperately needed to be made safe. Working as a unit, the survivors began clearing out any lurking undead. They fought through the narrow corridors with whatever weapons they could grab. By now, handling stray walkers was second nature to these apocalypse survivors. Soon enough, the concrete tower was completely cleared of monsters. Xiao-Yun immediately ordered everyone to check themselves for any hidden bites or scratches. Once they confirmed everyone was unharmed, the young leader explained the plan. When the enemy strikes, this fortress will be their safe zone. But they were not just planning to hide, they wanted to fight back as one. Xiao-Yun decided they needed to organize first. Only then would he distribute the guns and ammunition during the siege. They would use radios to coordinate and follow orders. Every hand would be needed. Meanwhile, near the coal mine, the enemy was busy unloading crates of heavy weaponry. A monstrous mutant of absolute giant proportions grunted, demanding fresh meat. He complained of starving, but Rui ignored the beast, focusing on their progress. Everything was moving along, though their old base at Villa Bigassen was gone. With that outpost completely destroyed, finding food was now their top priority. Rui soon learned that a rival group from the eastern suburbs had caused the destruction. Tomorrow, she would lead her squad along with the second to slaughter everyone there. Late that evening, Xiao-Yun pulled up his stats and checked the inventory in the system store. 2 items instantly caught his eye. They were level 2 enhancement boxes, things he had never seen in stock before. This upgrade would boost a person's physical strength by 8 times. That is an insane power-up. The next morning, a convoy of heavily armed vehicles and motorbikes tore down the road, heading straight for the survivor fortress. En route, Rui went over the final battle strategy with her vanguard. The second would lead the charge, breaking straight through their gates. Meanwhile, the rest would suppress them with heavy gunfire from armored trucks. The giant sat in the back, muttering about wanting to kill and eat. Meanwhile, Xiao-Yun escorted Captain Lai to a sniper roost, though the shooter doubted. Awful spot, way worse than the watchtower, with blind spots everywhere. Especially near the walls, but Xiao-Yun insisted visibility did not matter. Li was utterly baffled. Why did Xiao-Yun bring him here? He had briefly worked as a sniper in his youth, but those days were long gone. Now self-doubt consumed him, but surely he could handle a decent target. Anything under 200 meters, give him a good rifle, and he was golden. He was just a bit timid. This was exactly what Xiao-Yun wanted to hear. Stay calm, confidence brings success, but then Zaijin interrupted. He groaned. He had never worked this hard in his entire life. Carrying that heavy box felt like hauling solid bricks over a very long distance. Xiao-Yun popped the heavy lid. Inside lay a massive, high-caliber Barrett sniper rifle. Li gasped in absolute awe, completely thrilled by the weapon. He could not believe Xiao-Yun actually got this, but the kid warned him. They only had 10 precious rounds. Every single shot had to count. Li held the rifle with shaking hands, feeling a surge of sudden hope. His life had meaning again. Just then, Zaijin reported that everyone was ready. They had all taken their defensive positions. Xiao-Yun told them to stay sharp. The bandits could strike any second. Suddenly, Shan crackled over the radio. She spotted something highly unusual from her high vantage point on the tower. Peering through her high-powered scope, she locked eyes on the approaching menace. The battle was starting. A convoy of ruthless bandits approached. The attackers reached the gates, surprised to find the outer area completely empty. Was it a trap? Rui did not care, immediately ordering the full charge. If they waited, the defenders would have too much time to prepare. There was no turning back now. The entire fleet of armored vehicles roared forward. Flying down the road at extreme speeds, they charged. Shan watched them. From her watchtower, she screamed for everyone to open fire immediately. The defenders lined up along the barricades, unleashing a torrent of hot lead. Bullets shredded the open field, instantly cutting down several of the charging bandits. The invaders clearly did not expect to run into such an intense welcome. Rui was absolutely furious. It made no sense how they were so prepared. Somehow these weaklings had spotted them and set up a solid defensive line. She ordered her driver to pull up directly against the outer defensive walls. Using the concrete as cover to avoid the bullets, she unleashed second. The bloodthirsty giant leaped from the truck, carrying a massive, roaring gas chainsaw. He marched straight to the heavy gate and began sawing through the metal. Sparks flew under continuous gunfire, but the defenders quickly noticed the giant. They saw him attempting to tear down their main line of defense. The other bandits hid behind their cars, shooting back to cover him. This gave him time to cut. Suddenly, a bullet struck a bespectacled defender. He was hit in the shoulder. Chadong noticed their heavy automatic weapons. The bandits possessed military-grade gear that easily matched their own weapons. As the injured man was dragged away, the others fought to hold position. They had plenty of ammo. Still, Shunbo saw they were targeting the gate. Captain Lee locked his eyes on the target, preparing to fire. They would not be able to escape this chaos, but Sean stayed completely calm. He assured them everything was going according to plan, then turned around. Sean dashed toward the watchtower at top speed without uttering another word. Sean left his comrades behind. The invaders only had half their arsenal left. And the second giant was still busy trying to saw through the gate. They feared failure, yet, driven by pure rage, the second giant kept sawing. He threw all his strength into the metal, knowing victory was close. As the gate began to yield, Shan Shan ordered her allies to prepare. They needed to lay down cover fire and stop the bandits. Rui was furious. She wanted to see how these fools would survive this terrifying, evolved beast. Rui commanded her men to take cover right behind the massive giant. They were to fan out and secure the entire perimeter upon entry. Sean quickly scaled the building balcony and reached out to Captain Lee. By radio, Sean instructed the expert sniper to target the largest enemy. The massive behemoth stood out so clearly that missing him was impossible. Captain Lee locked onto him, but prepare yourself, because this beast was no ordinary target. Shelter residents watched in absolute horror, questioning if the beast was human. The hulking, muscular monstrosity marched forward, completely ignoring the gunfire. A squad of bandits took cover behind him as the giant charged. Bullets deflected off his thick hide while his face twisted with rage. His bleeding wounds closed up right before their eyes as bullets popped. They realized this terrifying, unknown monster possessed rapid self-healing. Rui thoroughly enjoyed seeing the sheer panic spreading through the shelter. The defenders had clearly never faced an evolved threat like this. Captain Lee realized ordinary small arms would not stop this giant beast. The sniper adjusted his stance, took a deep breath, and aimed. His shot was flawless, piercing the creature's skull and ending it instantly. The bandits froze in disbelief, unable to process what just happened. They had absolute faith in their giant, comrade invincible strength. Rui knew the defenders must possess some incredibly high-caliber military hardware. And just when they thought they were safe, Sean completely flipped the script. Sean's cold voice echoed from right behind them, completely shattering their focus. He had quietly flanked them while they were focused on their giant. Panic spread through the enemy ranks as several fell with head wounds. They were completely trapped and defenseless. Rui realized she had drastically underestimated the strength of these defenders. They needed to retreat to their vehicles before they got wiped out. The bandits bolted, but Rui instantly recognized the boy standing in their path. It was the same kid from the road, now blocking her escape route. He leveled a high-powered rifle right at her at point-blank range. She grabbed a running driver, using his body as a meat shield to take the hits. Bullets riddled the driver as Sean realized her reaction time was superhuman. She was definitely another evolved human, possessed of some terrifying physical abilities. While Sean was momentarily off guard, Rui hurled the corpse at him. He leaped out of the way, narrowly dodging the heavy human projectile. That distraction was all the girl needed to rush toward her car. Captain Lee was in absolutely no rush, lazily basking in the sun on the roof. He tracked his targets quietly through the optical scope of his sniper rifle. A girl wearing a red jacket and short shorts came right into his crosshairs. Remembering his mother's warning that dangerously dressed girls are always trouble, Captain Lee definitely loved girls, but he loved firing his rifle way more. The bullet tore through the girl, severing her leg. Rui was barely a meter away from her escape car when she collapsed onto the hot asphalt, bleeding heavily. Her assistant grabbed her by the arm and pulled her inside. Tires screeched as the getaway car sped away, dodging a hail of bullets. Bandits escaped, but Xiao-Yun didn't seem bothered at all. He knew they would definitely come back seeking revenge, and right then, the system popped up with a new quest: hunt them down and strike their base. With the base coordinates unlocked, the survivors in the shelter celebrated their hard victory. They had won. Still, this first attack was incredibly intense. Xiao-Yun immediately ordered medical treatment for the injured and demanded a complete disinfection, since outsiders had breached their secure territory. Once safe, they could finally rescue the survivors trapped in the abandoned building. The shelter was completely secure, and for pulling off this defense, our protagonist earned a massive load of points to spend on upgrades. Meanwhile, the battered bandits finally limped their way back to the coal mine. Only a few of them stepped out, bloody and broken, met by shocked comrades. The men gasped in horror when they saw their leader, Rui, was missing a leg. They demanded to know what went wrong, but the truth was painful. Having been too careless, they never expected the survivors to hold heavy weapons. Balancing weakly on her remaining leg, Rui barked orders at her men, telling them not to stare at her but to fetch human meat immediately to heal her. When nobody moved, she screamed that they were useless fools who were not worth a single finger of the second. Her insults instantly triggered fury in the third. He was completely done taking orders from her and snarled for her to shut up. Shocking, his sudden rebellion left her completely speechless, frozen in sheer disbelief. The third had zero intention of listening. Rui screamed for her assistant to grab him. But none of the men moved a muscle. Smiling with absolute confidence, the third stepped forward. She was crippled, the second was dead, he was in charge. That meant he was now the strongest survivor. The crew was utterly sick of her abuse. They had no desire to take her insults or follow another one of her commands. And just like that, the tables turned completely. She realized they were rebelling. She still thought she could handle them all. She was dead wrong. With her being alone, the sheer number of angry men spelled certain doom. The angry mob slowly closed in around her, tightening their grip. Third raised a heavy iron pipe, showing everyone how to pay back the humiliation. Within minutes, she was completely finished, gone. Just like that, it ended. One survivor approached their new leader, calling him by his old rank of third. Catching the pure rage in his new boss's eyes, the man instantly realized his fatal mistake. He dropped to his knees, desperately begging for mercy from their terrifying new master. First, the young man needed to share some heavy thoughts with Third. His mind was racing. Rui was dead. Second was gone too. Their gang was heavily crippled. So many of their fighters were gone. If they crossed paths with Tentacle, none of them stood a chance. Third shook his head and told him not to worry. They had options. They would recruit the Sagan gang at the local steel mill. The next day, Xiao-Yun set out. His new mission was simple: clear the enemy base hidden inside the coal mine. This time, Captain Lee and Zaijiang joined him, moving silently. They had to stay quiet, avoid attracting any unwanted attention. Surprisingly, the place was empty. No enemies, just a dead female fighter near the door. She was part of the group that raided their hideout yesterday. Her own allies had killed her. It was a brutal execution. For gangs like this, betrayal was normal. She had failed them. Chidong pointed out something strange: the giant who attacked their shelter fence. Yesterday looked absolutely nothing like Chin Chong. He seemed more like a mutant. Or a zombie. Captain Lee recalled hearing others call him evolved. But what did that even mean? Xiao-Yun calmly explained the truth. To evolve, you had to eat human flesh. The revelation shocked everyone. Talk about a nightmare. They had never imagined anything so utterly repulsive. Cannibalism was the absolute fastest way to gain zombie powers. Simply horrific. Zaijiang pointed at Xiao-Yun. If they wanted to survive this world, would they have to become monsters too? Xiao-Yun quickly reassured them. Eating people was just the easiest path. It was not the only way. He reached into his pocket. Out came a glowing red object. It looked exactly like a tomato. He handed it to them. Evolved humans and zombies must consume mutant flesh to grow. But mutants, they need alien energy to evolve to the next stage. In normal humans, this energy is scattered randomly through their flesh. But in mutants and evolved humans, it concentrates inside a core. The longer this disaster drags on, the stronger these cores become. Captain Lee realized the implication. Eating zombie flesh could trigger evolution. Zaijiang immediately backed away. No way, he would never do that. Xiao-Yun shook his head. Normal people would just turn into zombies. Only mutants like Qin Chang could safely absorb the power. Just then, a game notification flashed. The enemy base was officially cleared. But in that quiet moment, a zombie lunged from absolute nowhere. Xiao-Yun reacted instantly, slamming the creature down. They looked around, panicked. How did it sneak up so quietly? It made no sense. Still, every cloud has a silver lining. Xiao-Yun sliced open its chest. He pulled out a fresh core. Now he had 2 of them. Both companions could upgrade, but Zaijiang flatly refused the offer. He gave his share to Captain Lei. In this brutal world, life was incredibly short anyway. Captain Lee swallowed both cores without hesitation. He prayed he would not vomit. Then, a warm sensation rushed in. Strength surged. His eyes burned with a brand new power. And growing stronger, Xiao-Yun reassured his buddy that his powers were tiny right now, but this, only the beginning of his evolution. Once they cleared out the coal mine and checked for any stragglers, the guys finally headed back to the shelter, feeling extremely accomplished. Meanwhile, a completely different group arrived outside the Sagan steel mill. Armed guards blocked them instantly, barked orders to freeze right there, and demanded to know their business. Quickly, one of the newcomers stepped forward, introducing himself as the 3rd from the coal mine factory. That name carried major weight in gangster circles, earning them a wait. While the guard reported to the boss, soon, a bald man and a spectacled woman emerged to size up their uninvited guests, demanding to know why the 3rd came. And where Rui and the 2nd were, the 3rd claimed those 2 had turned on them. They tried to fight back, but unfortunately, neither of them survived. This grim news deeply upset the factory gangsters, who readily agreed to welcome the 3rd and his crew into their ranks, offering them quarters inside. But the bosses quietly whispered to each other. As their men went to prepare the rooms, suddenly the guests found themselves placed in highly uncomfortable, prison-like rooms. This immediately raised suspicion. One of the coal mine guys muttered to the 3rd that he had a terrible feeling about this place. He pointed out the weird layout, showing his friends the steel windows and doors that looked exactly like cell bars. Even if they were just protection against zombies, suddenly the door creaked open and a steel mill thug ordered them to follow him to the boss. Shortly after, the entire gang gathered inside the massive, echoing factory hall, where the coal mine crew was brought forward under heavy guard. The 3rd tried to play it cool, casually asking why they had been summoned. The female boss did not waste time and got straight to business, asking what exactly should be done to a man who murdered his own leader. The 3rd instantly started to shake in terror, stammering that Ping and Lin had completely misunderstood the whole situation, but Ms. Lin just scoffed, declaring that this was no misunderstanding and that Lai Chen would now lay out the brutal reality before the 3rd drew his last breath. It turned out Lai Chen had already investigated the coal mine courtyard, where he discovered Rui's beaten body, though the 2nd had vanished entirely. With no signs of an outside fight, the only logical explanation was betrayal. The 3rd had simply taken advantage of the injured girl and murdered her. Panicked, the third desperately claimed this was all just wild speculation without proof. But his pathetic excuses only made the factory boss laugh out loud. In this brutal world, who even needs proof, besides the steel mill gang? Had always wanted to eliminate the coal mine crew, but were terrified of the sheer power of Rui and the second. Now, execution orders were issued. Just then, one of the terrified coal mine survivors scrambled forward, begging desperately for his life in exchange for highly critical and valuable secrets. He promised total cooperation, revealing that a massive group with endless supplies was currently holed up in the Eastern District, completely ripe for the picking. The attack killed their second-in-command and wounded Rui, proving they were a serious threat. Their strength rivaled the local bosses, making them extremely dangerous to the factory gangsters. He added that these newcomers were just ordinary survivors, not even trained fighters. None of them knew how to trigger evolution or gain powers. Hearing about these evolved beings instantly grabbed Lichen's full attention. He focused in, watching every detail of the meeting unfold. Boss Ping demanded to know how the coal mine gangsters got beaten so easily. It turned out these survivors possessed high-tech weapons that took out their second leader. He was taken down in one shot, which was useful intelligence for them. But despite the helpful intel, Lin cold-bloodedly ordered his execution anyway. The desperate traitor begged for mercy, crying about fairness, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. With the traitors cleared out, the bosses huddled to plan their next move against this threat. This issue had to be dealt with swiftly, but Lin urged caution. A direct assault using heavy weaponry was just too risky right now. They needed to level up their own strength first to guarantee a victory. Until then, sending scouts to verify the rumors was their best bet. Meanwhile, Xiao-Yun was busy doing what he loved most, counting his points. He was planning exactly how to spend them in the system shop. The guy was looking to hoard tons of food, advanced weapons, and supplies. But his shopping spree was suddenly cut short by a knock on his door. Shan entered with news that they had captured a suspicious intruder. Captain Li and Zai Jiang dragged in a man wearing work clothes who demanded to see the boss. He swore he was a friend, and Xiao-Yun soon came out to meet him. The prisoner was stunned to find such a young, handsome leader running the place. He explained that he came all the way from the Saigon steel factory. Introducing himself as Asin, he offered a warm greeting to the leader. Hearing that name made one of the shelter residents instantly tense up. He knew that facility was the largest industrial base in the Southwest. A massive stronghold. It was a massive settlement just like the coal factory, located 3 kilometers out. Xiao-Yun asked why he traveled so far, but Asin claimed everything was pure chaos. He argued that scattered survivors had to unite if they wanted to stay alive. Asin claimed his boss sent him out to locate other shelters for cooperation. Just then, a chubby, spectacled man handed Xiao-Yun a map. It was a detailed schematic of the area that Asin had hand-drawn. Xiao-Yun quietly activated his mind's eye to study their uninvited guest closely. The stranger showed zero hostility, posing no immediate threat on the surface. Wait, things are about to get intense. Xiao-Yun suddenly whipped out his gun. He pressed the barrel directly against Asin's forehead, eyes cold as ice. He warned the guest that he was not someone to be played with. He demanded the absolute truth before he blew the man's brains out. Asin broke into a cold sweat, shaking, but kept swearing his innocence. He insisted he only wanted to survive and had done nothing wrong. Xiao-Yun turned to Zai Jiang, asking a crucial question. Had the stranger laid eyes on Chen Chong? Zai Jiang quickly answered. The result was negative. Hearing this, Xiao-Yun ordered the spy's immediate release without any trouble, just like that, free of charge. In addition, he even returned the schematic map that the man had managed to draw, unable to believe his eyes and feeling weak in the knees, the man scrambled to run the second he was let out of the shelter gates just in case those people changed their minds. 5. Months went by. Down at the factory, workers sorted scrap metal in disgust. The latest news: people were disappearing again, and they figured the culprit was that monster constantly hunting them. Suddenly, an unfamiliar sound echoing from behind a massive scrap pile caught their attention. One man went to check it out, and honestly, we all know how that ends. The poor guy never got to see a thing. In the next second, his head was sliced clean off by something sharp. Lee Jun was taking a smoke near the security booth when a worker's agonizing scream tore through the air. He bolted toward the noise, running straight into a terrified worker who gasped that a monster had just brutally slaughtered his friend. The terrified survivor did not even have time to glimpse what the beast looked like, but it could not have been anything else. It happened right by the massive garbage pit. Lee Jun found the news sickening. This time the beast had struck with zero warning. He ordered all the workers to find cover and told the speed-type evolutionaries to follow him. He strictly warned his squad not to engage the beast. If they crossed paths with it, they had to retreat immediately. The guards swept the entire area but found nothing. Perhaps the tentacled beast had already left with its victim. Everyone knew that people were vanishing much more frequently since the coal factory at the villa was destroyed. Previously, the creature had 3 different hunting grounds, but now it only targeted them. Meanwhile, the guards analyzed the tracks. Xiao-Yun silently realized that this time, the beast had survived longer than in his previous timeline. If things did not change, rebuilding human civilization was going to be a brutal challenge. Several months passed, yet the anticipated factory mission still had not appeared, even though the young leader desperately needed to grow and strengthen his community right now. A car suddenly rolled up. Xiao-Yun's scouts were back from their mission. Xiao-Yun stepped out to report their success, boasting that they were strong enough now to instantly spot anyone tailing them, so they had returned completely undetected. Xiao-Yun smiled and greeted their youngest recruit, Shukai, who had already fully adapted to this dangerous post-apocalyptic life. The kid was incredibly proud, telling his mother that everything went perfectly because he had personally taken down the zombies all by himself. Xiao-Yun ordered the monster cores moved to storage. He then gathered his most trusted commanders to tell them he was heading to the factory to wipe out the beast and secure some powerful new allies. He was planning to infiltrate the area completely alone. Naturally, his friends hated this idea. Scouts from that factory had already been spotted, likely scouting with hostile intentions. If things went sideways, they could not protect their leader, but Xiao-Yun just laughed it off, claiming that with his current power, not even Brother Chang could touch him, let alone basic zombies or hostile scavengers. He wanted to reach the facility to see if the people there were friends or foes. Soon, he handed off the vital mission of protecting the shelter to his most trusted allies. Hoping they could hold the line, Shengbo told their leader to stay safe and not worry. They would get by, but without Xiao-Yun, the survivors would never survive, remember that. Meanwhile, Li Chun desperately tried to get inside, but the guards blocked his path, insisting he needed authorization from both leaders. The frustrated investigator could not contain his rising anger and lunged at a guard, only to immediately backtrack and beg for mercy. Li Chun could not understand what was happening to him anymore. He was losing his grip on his temper, and lately it kept happening more and more frequently. The guards assured him that the bosses respected his work, but advised him to stay back. Suddenly, Lin appeared with a cold smile at the frantic investigator and welcomed him, asking what urgent news he had brought her. Li Chun had his own theories about the recent tentacle monster incident, and he needed to discuss it immediately. He had personally scouted the attack site and discovered fresh female footprints that did not match anyone living in their camp. This meant the real killer was human. Lin quietly thanked the loyal tracker for the crucial intel, but strictly ordered him to keep it a secret. The laborers were already terrified and constantly refused to work outside. The phantom monster was bad enough, and knowing a new killer was lurking would trigger a complete mutiny. She firmly warned her subordinate and demanded absolute compliance. Crushed, Li Chun quietly walked out of the office, realizing he forgot to ask her about the mysterious evolutionists he kept hearing about but knew next to nothing about. Later, Lin told her partner Pan about the female footprints, but he just smirked. He mocked her for being too soft on such a threat. Lin snapped back, telling Pan to handle the threat himself if he was so terrified. At that moment, Pan was casually slicing raw meat and promised to hunt down the killer as soon as their next human flesh meal was finished. Meanwhile, Xiao-Yun headed to the steel plant alone, killing stray zombies on his path. Soon, the massive factory chimneys appeared on the distant horizon, and he realized it was time to disguise his identity. The young survivor used his dimensional ring to pull out a pair of scissors and cut his hair short. Then he smeared thick mud over his hands, his face, and even across his clothes. With a pair of glasses on, he looked just like an innocent schoolboy. But before he could slip inside, Xiao-Yun was stopped by an armed guard shouting for him to halt and stay still. The guard could see the kid was alone and wondered how a weakling had survived out here for so long. Xiao-Yun immediately started playing dumb, claiming he only noticed the factory was inhabited and was thrilled to find other survivors. He spun a tragic tale, claiming 10 of them had started out, but a massive zombie horde wiped them all out, leaving him as the sole survivor. The guard sized him up, assuming the scrawny kid was completely harmless and likely just a helpless casualty. He ordered him inside for a thorough inspection. Xiao-Yun nodded, playing along and pretending to be a total novice, though he claimed he had some basic experience fighting monsters and wanted to help. Xiao-Yun went inside with the guard, but a sudden voice stopped them cold. It was Lai Chen, who spotted the stranger and demanded to know his business. The guard quickly explained that the lone traveler had just arrived at their settlement. They were taking him in for a search, but Lai Chen did not understand. He wanted to inspect the newcomer himself, insisting on an immediate check. Lai Chen ordered him to hand over his blade, but Xiao-Yun hesitated. Xiao-Yun wanted some guarantee he would not be killed inside the factory. Lai Chen pointed out the harsh reality of the apocalypse, calling it a necessary precaution. If the stranger refused to disarm, he was free to go, Lai Chen reasoned. The logic made sense, so Xiao-Yun handed over his blade for the search. As they patted him down, Xiao-Yun hoped these people still had moral values. They seemed far better than the savages he encountered at the coal mine. Lai Chen was genuinely surprised. How did this kid survive with just a knife? He wondered if the traveler was an evolutionist who possessed superhuman strength. Xiao-Yun played along, admitting he felt a lot stronger these days. But Lai Chen did not care to judge. That was the boss's job. He led the young man to a reception room and told him to wait. He would have to wait there. But this reception room felt more like a dark, reinforced prison cell. Soon a fierce boss named Pang walked in, demanding to know his name. Xiao-Yun introduced himself as Jangya, keeping his real name hidden. Pang mentioned hearing that the young man had undergone a powerful evolution. But then talk about an aggressive welcome, an axe comes flying at him. The weapon sailed at extreme speed, but Xiao-Yun did not even flinch. He tilted his head slightly, letting the blade slam deep into the wall. Recognizing this was just a test of his reflexes, Xiao-Yun played dumb. He instantly started shouting in panic, demanding to know why they attacked him. He screamed that it was dangerous and that he wanted to find allies. His frightened act worked. Pang was satisfied and believed he was indeed evolved. The boy kept up the protest, asking what would happen if he missed. An innocent man would have died, but Pang did not care at all. Pang casually dismissed the danger, knowing how rare evolutionists actually were. He sternly warned the newcomer never to share their secret method of evolving. Only a select few knew the secret, and loose lips would mean death. If the rookie stepped out of line, Pang would end him instantly. Xiao-Yun calmly analyzed the threat, knowing he could easily take him down. But there was no reason to start a fight just yet. Pang openly admired the newcomer's sharp reflexes and impressive speed. Still, the boss warned him not to get too arrogant in this place. No matter his skills, Pang's true power was on a whole different level. For now, he overlooked the hidden blade and accepted him into the camp. He ordered his men to get the newcomer cleaned up and dressed. Soon, Pang introduced their newest member to the rest of the group. He presented Zhang Ye to the inner circle, including their other leaders. Among them was Hang Ling, a glasses-wearing leader who assigned someone to guide him. That was Huang Ben Huang Lin, told the newcomer he was incredibly lucky to have. Found the strongest settlement around, this guaranteed his survival, but only the useful ones got to eat. Huang Ben, who was tasked with training Xiao-Yun, announced it was time for patrol, so they had to leave. Two other men, Asen and Aiken, joined them. Asen stared closely at the newcomer trying to place where they had met. Huang Ben asked if Daepeng had explained how their settlement actually worked. The young man replied that he was only told to keep quiet about the secret of evolution. It turned out that only Huang Lin, the sister, Daepeng, and the four men knew the dark truth about eating human flesh. Asen was Daepeng's cousin, and Aiken was Huang Ben and Huang Lin's nephew. They were one family, meaning only the newcomer could leak the truth. Xiao-Yun quickly promised that he understood completely and would remain silent. At the same time, he remembered Li Chen, who had been secretly scouting their base recently. Li Chen was an ordinary guy but highly talented and strong. He could never learn their secret under any circumstances. Otherwise, neither Xiao-Yun nor Li Chen would have survived to see the next sunrise. Xiao-Yun figured that Li Chen had massive potential, which is why they limited his resources and information to prevent him from surpassing the two leaders. Soon, Huang Ben announced that they had finally arrived at a tiny outpost of 7 or 8 people. The evolutionists had tracked them for days and had never spotted any other evolved humans there. Huang Ben explained they were no savages who hunted for sport, they were breeding humans. Asen gave the newcomer a warm hug, advising him to shift his mindset completely. After all, he was an evolved being and should not be as stubborn as Li Chen. Put simply, they were an entirely different species from normal humans, sitting comfortably at the absolute top of the food chain. Xiao-Yun realized they intended to kidnap these survivors to harvest them later. Huang Ben decided that taking 5 or 6 people was plenty, and they would slaughter the others right there. Meanwhile, the outpost walls were constantly reinforced with layers of concrete. Whenever survivors salvaged cement, the labor was absolutely grueling, making the young worker relieved when the shift finally ended. Just then, one of the guards spotted a massive, shifting shadow on the horizon. Moments later, it became dreadfully clear that a massive horde of starving zombies was approaching. The people did not even have a chance to grab weapons before the monsters breached the walls and tore into their flesh. Clutching a simple wooden staff, Xiao-Yun stared in absolute horror, knowing he was utterly doomed. A massive wave of zombies surrounded him, and he was defenseless. Xiao-Yun realized Huang Ben's cruel plan was to unleash the horde, and honestly, this guy is a complete monster. He confirmed resources were limited. Bringing more than 10 captives back to the factory at once meant would create a faction too difficult to control. It was time for the elite evolutionists to show their true power, while Xiao-Yun just watched. In the chaos, a zombie tackled a girl to the dirt, lunging to bite into her neck, but a sudden miracle interrupted the beast. The girl blinked, and in that split second, the zombie's head went flying clean off into the on the ground. Her savior looked incredibly handsome, a young, striking guy holding a bloodied sword who now extended his hand to help the stranger up. Rescuers were evolutionists from the nearby steel factory. The rescued survivors looked on with absolute admiration, thanking them profusely for saving their lives. Xiao-Yun silently analyzed their combat strength. Noticing they were barely 20 years old, but easily matched Chiang and his men. Suddenly, his keen hearing picked up a strange sound. And then he noticed a sharp glint coming directly from the window of a nearby high-rise. The young warrior watched the window, but his new allies quickly called him over to help clear up the entire bloody mess after the battle had ended. The dead bodies had to be gathered, leaving them was impossible. Yongya eagerly jumped right into the work. Meanwhile, someone really was watching them from that high window. Hang Bin then ordered everyone to stay put and drag all the heavy corpses to the entrance, while he quickly arranged for a small transport truck to arrive. The fallen zombies had to be piled up completely separately before being taken away. Hang Bin and his fellow evolutionists then called on the rescued survivors to join them as they headed straight toward the safety of the factory left behind. Xiao-Yun smiled, glad everything had worked out. He slid out a sharp knife using his spatial ring and began carefully cutting out the valuable mutant cores. Elsewhere, the rescued survivors were absolutely overjoyed. Thanking their saviors over and over again, one girl was incredibly happy to learn there was running water at the base, meaning she could finally wash herself clean. Hearing this, Asin pulled the beautiful girl close, boasting they had plenty of not only hot running water, but even real shower gel to make her completely clean and fresh. But quite suddenly, a subtle shift in the air caught Asin's keen attention. He instantly became alert and highly cautious. His sudden panic quickly spread to Hang Bin, who immediately scanned the dark surroundings to locate the threats. Hang Bin ordered everyone to halt and get ready. Asin reassured the terrified girl, pulling her clothes and promising to protect her. The experienced evolutionist had a faint, chilling idea of what they were about to face, but he still could not pinpoint the massive creature's exact hiding spot. Having a beautiful woman nearby made Asin careless. He figured that Hang Bin was just being overly paranoid about absolutely everything. But Asin was wrong. His friend's instincts were actually dead on. In a sudden split second, a massive tentacle skewered his head, tearing it entirely clean off. The giant mutated beast brought its horrific face right up to Hang Bin, who was too paralyzed by terror to speak. Meanwhile, far from this bloody ambush, Xiao-Yun continued collecting his crystal cores, completely unaware of the sudden monster attack. These zombies were cultivated, meaning each dead corpse contained 2 rare energy nuclei instead of just 1, a real jackpot. Suddenly, Xiao-Yun's keen ears caught screams. Hang Bin was now fully trapped by the massive tentacles, knowing his end had officially come. Despite his advanced evolution, nobody could save him, and the giant beast quickly crushed him. The horrified survivors watched in utter shock as bloody remains showered over them. Having slaughtered its prey, the mutant turned toward Asin, targeted him because his endless hunger remained unsatisfied. The coward immediately realized exactly how this deadly encounter would end. He was terrified, but obviously did not want to die. Fighting back seemed totally futile, but a Chan grabbed the girl he had just promised his heart to, throwing her straight at the monster to save himself. The tentacled mutant was completely undiscriminating when it came to food. It lifted the beautiful girl with its massive tentacles, ready to squeeze the life out of her. She was losing consciousness from choking, but suddenly woke up after falling from a huge height. She was sitting on the road, surrounded by severed tentacle stumps. Yoongi arrived on the scene right on time with his sharp blade. He asked the locals if this was actually the terrifying mutant everyone feared, while the beast itself was still trying to understand where its limbs had gone. A Chan explained that this was not the true monster, but merely its younger sibling. The actual giant beast constantly grumbles about his offspring and has the power to turn normal zombies into mutants, which is why they are called sons. Now imagine dealing with an army of these things, a truly terrifying prospect. Xiao-Yun carefully noted this critical detail for his future plans. Meanwhile, Achan realized he had stayed far too long talking when he should have been fleeing for his life, so he yelled and ran, claiming he wanted reinforcements. Xiao-Yun knew no reinforcements existed. The guy was simply terrified and took his chance to flee. Suddenly, the tentacled mutant seized Xiao-Yun by his limbs. By this point, the creature had already regenerated its weapons. Xiao-Yun remained absolutely calm and confident, continuing to quietly analyze his monstrous foe while finding the concept of a son amusing. Having fully evaluated his opponent, the young master utilized his deep inner power to yank every single tentacle directly toward himself. Now, nobody could tell who was commanding whom as the struggling beast moved like a helpless, shaking puppet. It dug its heavy heels into the asphalt to resist, but Xiao-Yun possessed immense force and dragged it closer, eager to test his newly awakened skills. He quickly triggered a physical reboot, multiplying his raw internal strength. Multiple times over, with a simple, effortless pull, he dragged the beast close and smashed it with his fist. He then approached the heavily wounded enemy and finished it off with a casual kick from his left foot. You can only imagine her pure shock as she watched this insane display. Xiao-Yun got so carried away that he shredded the beast into fine pieces that looked like packaged grocery store meat. Once done, he walked over to the girl and asked if she was all right, saying she should not fear him. He promised to protect her, insisting he would never hurt her since he was just a kind, normal human. Meanwhile, the factory bosses grew highly alarmed when their carefully laid plans fell completely apart. They demanded answers about their missing relatives. Achan lied, saying Asen and Banya were killed by the giant mutant spawn, claiming he barely escaped with a handful of lucky survivors from the camp. There was absolutely no news about the newcomer Watson, who surely perished since the three of them could never defeat such a monster. Hearing this, Dapen became completely furious. Dapen was furious that such elite evolutionaries had died protecting totally worthless people. He hurled his heavy battle axe at the terrified newcomers. The brutal blow split one man clean in half. His allies scrambled to restrain Dapen, whose blinding rage was completely out of control. Then a bizarre object suddenly appeared before them. The mutant tentacles were bound in thick rope. Jiang Yi stood alongside a strange girl from the camp facing the stunned crowd. Lai Chen was genuinely relieved. Seeing that the kid actually survived, Jiang Yi explained how he had slaughtered the mutant offspring to avenge his slaughtered family. Obviously, this could not raise the dead, but the leaders immediately realized how incredibly powerful Jiang Yi truly was, defeating the beast entirely on his own. Later that night, Akan retold the story to his family, totally convinced that the tentacled monster was far more powerful than even Lai Chen. The young survivor was still absolutely terrified. That beast had instantly butchered his uncle and cousin. He doubted Lai Chen could do the same. In fact, he believed even their strongest bosses would struggle against such a nightmare. Dapen pointed out how quickly the kid had reacted to his surprise axe throw, dodging the lethal strike while instantly drawing his own weapon, though it made absolutely no sense how he could be so monstrously powerful despite looking like a teenager. Hangling argued that they were probably overestimating the power of the beast that attacked them. But their caution was logical. Still, Dapen believed that the new kid couldn't be trusted, fearing he might plot with Lai Chen. Just then, Lai Chen himself walked right into the office, ending their private talk instantly. He offered his deep apologies to the bosses, but they considered it a mere formality and wanted to know why he had come. Lai Chen straight up suggested appointing Jiang Yi as another leader of the settlement since his raw strength easily rivaled his own, but Hangling was strongly against it, arguing that this young newcomer completely lacked any real achievements or contributions, making a stranger a huge risk. However, Leon believed that slaying the giant monster was more than enough contribution to survival. Hangling fired back, saying if Zhang Yi could easily slaughter that beast, he should be the one to solve their monster problem. Lai Chen was surprised and angry. Even the bosses avoided that mutant. Yet they wanted to send an inexperienced kid. Lin Wang quickly calmed him down, promising she was not sending him to his death. Their entire military force would fully mobilize to destroy the beast forever. Dapin laid out the entire attack strategy to Zhang Yi, leaving him quite shocked. He had barely arrived at this outpost, yet they were already giving him such a massive role. The entire operation revolved around him. Lin Wang confirmed this, explaining that the leaders recognized his insane potential and would support him completely. Dapin even promised to make Zhang Yi the third leader if this dangerous mission succeeded, but this was likely to pit potential rivals against each other, telling Lai Chen that the young newcomer had already surpassed his power. Lai Chen had no issue using his unique skills. They decided to advance against the monster in just a few days, leaving Zhang Yi deeply touched by their trust. Chang decided to activate the Eye of Reason, which immediately revealed the real picture. Only Lai Chen remained completely neutral, holding absolutely no grudges against the young man. Meanwhile, Chubby Glasses kept a close watch by the radio, waiting for updates. Suddenly, Xiao-Yun finally established contact after being gone for several days. He had been staying at the steel factory while everyone worried about him. Their leader radioed back, warning that a massive battle was coming in 2 days. The clash would happen in a suburban park located in the southern district. Xiao-Yun wanted the group to bring Chang along to wipe out the threat. He knew he was the only one who could end this nightmare, but is he ready? Captain Li quickly called a meeting with all the shelter residents to plan. They needed to decide who would join the dangerous mission to the park. Old Shambo had to stay behind due to his age and physical limits. His job was simple: keep their fortress completely safe from any outside threats. The strike team consisted of Zhang Kai, Chang, Shan Shan, Captain Li, and the yellow-clothed fighters. They were a hardened crew, ready for a highly dangerous operation. Even little Shuai demanded to join, refusing to be left behind as a kid. He wanted to prove he was a real man, ignoring his mother's protests. Another survivor stepped in, reassuring the worried mother that the boy could handle zombies. Plus, Captain Li promised to keep a close, personal eye on him. Late that night, the factory vehicles finally rolled up to the park. Yungya tagged along with the leaders, wondering how they would draw out the target. Dopin just smiled, telling him not to worry because they had a solid plan. Of course, Xiao-Yun had his own cards to play for this ambush. He kept watch, quickly spotting the reflection of a scope on a nearby roof. His allies from the shelter had already secured their positions high above. Xiao-Yun had strictly ordered them not to get too close to the park. They had to stay hidden, watch the field, and keep their preparations moving. Captain Li signaled the squad to ready the climbing ropes for a surprise flank. Suddenly, Lin Huang waved over one of the boys, who tagged along with them. The terrified kid approached, completely unaware of what she wanted him to do. She told him to walk right into the dark, abandoned park alone. Leon frowned deeply, furious that they were forcing a porter boy into danger. Leon hated the look of this, and honestly, can you even blame him? But Lin Huang explained that the target constantly mumbled about his lost son. So they would give him one, promising the boy would survive the trap. Realizing he was nothing but live bait, the child started crying in fear. Tears did not matter. Dopin stepped forward with a cruel, tight grip. He grabbed the kid, threatening to end him right there if he refused. No mercy, they hurled the helpless boy straight into the darkness. He flew a massive distance before crashing hard onto one of the park alleys. Up on the roof, Captain Li spotted movement and immediately signaled his team. They began descending their ropes in total silence, trying not to make a sound. Down below, the dazed boy slowly picked himself up and realized his situation. Terrified of the shadows, he started sobbing loudly, begging for someone to help. Suddenly, a massive shape loomed in the dark, and Lichen lunged forward to strike the mutant and save the child, but Lin Huang held him back, keeping him from stepping in. He shouldn't steal the newcomer's credit, which Xiao-Yun understood. The female leader wanted to eliminate any future rivals, but the young warrior had other plans. Determined to test his own power, the young warrior rushed straight into the park. He wanted to save the child, but Xiao-Yun lunged forward first. She caught him by his sweater, throwing him into the nearby bushes at high speed. Just as the mutant was about to strike, the bushes suddenly shook. Lichen caught the terrified child, making sure the boy was completely safe. The kid was unharmed, meaning they could finally focus on the mutant. Coiling its thick tentacles around Xiao-Yun, the beast demanded its child back. Seeing this, Lichen realized the rookie was in serious trouble and needed help. He prepared to rush to Zhang Ye's aid, but his body was completely held back. The two leaders gripped him tightly, blocking his desperate attempt to save the poor guy. Lin Huang casually admitted the rookie might die, but called it a necessary sacrifice. Lin Huang believed Zhang Ye could fight the mutant, but things had gone sideways. Instead, the newcomer was just another victim, so saving him was pointless. Lichen suspected the leaders had set this up, but their motive remained a mystery. After all, Xiao-Yun was a skilled warrior who could protect their settlement. Xiao-Yun smirked, offering to tell everyone the dark truth himself. The corrupt leaders wanted him dead because he discovered their secret of eating humans. Before anyone could process the shock, Xiao-Yun roared a command to his comrades. He screamed to open fire, prompting Lichen and his squad to unleash a volley. Bullets tore toward the villains, while the rest of the team made their move. Chen Chong, Shan Shan, and the young boy flanked the giant mutant from the other side. Shouting that they were there to help, the boy threw a crude fire bomb. The agile monster easily sliced the flying bottle in half midair. The liquid exploded into flames, but something incredibly strange happened next. The monster completely ignored the fire scorching its skin, standing absolutely frozen in place. Every single one of its grotesque eyes locked onto the small child. It desperately rasped the word son as its ugly face twisted in pure agony. It looked ready to weep, but the boy suddenly yelled a harsh curse word. The insult snapped the beast out of its trance, instantly throwing it into a rage. Roaring for the boy to stop swearing, it put everyone on high alert. No ordinary monster, but before they could think, Chen Chong charged. Crossing the distance in a single bound, he slammed into the tentacled beast. The corrupt leaders ducked behind the thick trees to escape the flying bullets. From their cover, they watched in absolute shock as another mutant fought for humanity. It was an impossible sight, but Chen Chong kept swinging with pure desperation. He managed to rip away several thick tentacles, but the monster remained overwhelmingly strong. With a heavy counterstrike, it whipped him back before he could even react. Though he managed to stay on his feet, the impact sent him skidding back. Gasping for air, he stared up at the beast, which seemed completely unfazed. Xiao-Yun quietly noted his mutant ally had finally met a worthy opponent. Dopin was furious that this greenhorn could joke while trapped in death's grip. He was pinned by those tentacles, and Xiao-Yun was. Tired of dangling like a cheap toy, he grabbed those tentacles. He ripped them apart completely. Akan watched, frozen in absolute shock. Yet something in his memory kept nagging. He tried to piece it together. Yutsun suddenly remembered. The boy had called that young man Zhang Xiao-Yun. This matched what Asen reported after returning from his scouting mission. Zhang Xiao-Yun was the Eastern Fortress leader. He easily outsmarted everyone. This made the rival bosses absolutely furious. Meanwhile, Lin Huang guessed the truth. She was certain the fortress's main forces were hiding in the park. Dangerous archers were stationed everywhere. None surpassed Lai Chen, but all had firearms. Still, the real threat was there later, the infamous Xiao-Yun. Lin Huang knew victory was not guaranteed. Casualties would be devastating. Finally, a clever plan formed. She ordered her companion, Dapin, to distract them. Dapin asked 0 questions. He grabbed an axe and charged ahead. He ran fast, throwing his heavy weapon right at the refuge fighters. They barely reacted in time, losing their balance and scrambling behind trees. Captain Li knew this attack was not lethal, but it bred chaos. It was a clear sign their enemies were plotting something bigger. While everyone focused on Dapin, Lin Huang dashed into the park center. She aimed to kidnap young Shua, but Zio Kai reacted instantly. He shielded the kid with his body. Even so, she kicked him. Her brutal kick launched him away. As an advanced evolutionist, she was ruthless. With no one left to stop her, she easily grabbed the child. She grabbed the boy by his neck, holding him out while following her plan. Young Shua showed 0 fear. He fought back, demanding to be released. He even grabbed her arm. This made Lin Huang realize he was enhanced. She punched him hard in the face, knocking the kid unconscious. This brutal attack immediately drew the attention of the giant tentacled mutant. He abandoned his targets and rushed over. He screamed for his son. Chen Chong seized his chance. He leaped on the beast's back to restrain it. He grabbed the monster's throat, ready to choke it to death. But get this, Xiao-Yun actually told his friend to back off. He believed the desperate father was ready to die, so intervening was useless. It was much better to let him handle this messy situation alone. Meanwhile, Lin Huang kept her hand clamped tight on the child's throat. She demanded they disarm or the boy dies. Captain Li stepped forward. He begged her to let Shua go, offering himself as hostage instead. Lin Huang smiled, realizing she had captured the perfect leverage over them. As panic spread, she screamed at them to drop all weapons immediately. She ordered everyone to back off at least 100 meters right now. Nobody argued, though Captain Lei dreaded what he would tell the mother. Lin Huang commanded her own mutant to destroy the tentacled beast. But before she could do anything, she was forced to drop the kid. She desperately leaped away as a massive tentacle came crashing down. The heavy strike smashed directly into Asen, leaving everyone in pure shock. Dapin only had time to scream his nephew's name as the boy was ripped into several pieces. Lin Huang stood frozen, completely lost as the massive tentacled creature went to work. Nobody knew how the beast had broken free, but Xiao-Yun loved watching these scumbags see their grand plans collapse right now. Before their eyes, Lin noticed the strange creature and the new guy stood there, hands in their pockets, just calmly watching the action. They had absolutely no intention of fighting. Meanwhile, young Shai sat on the cold ground, tossed aside, when those terrifying tentacles suddenly wrapped around his small limbs. Captain Li lost his mind and was about to recklessly charge the towering monster with his bare hands, but Xiao-Yun immediately stepped in. Insisted the young boy was in 0 danger, and that everything would turn out perfectly fine. It made 0 sense, leaving everyone there completely stunned. The creature was lifting the boy up so gently, holding him right at eye level. He leaned toward the kid and softly whispered, "Son, Shua." His loving eyes said the rest. Xiao-Yun had kept his promise. Jiang Shenhe's family was safe and sound, and this emotional reunion was finally happening. Xiao-Yun assured the weeping boy that this monster was truly his dad, just like their old buddy Chang. Happy tears poured down the child's face. Watching this drama, Dapin nearly threw up from disgust, thinking this whole emotional display was far worse than some cheap soap opera, planning to escape while everyone was distracted by this sudden family reunion. But the monster would not be distracted for long. Because those wicked scoundrels were still breathing, his tentacles whipped forward.